Hello, everybody. Welcome to Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life. This is episode 12. We are here today with Wes Spinks. You guys have heard me talk about Wes Spinks in the past. A very good friend of mine. He has come to us from Missouri to spend a little time on our podcast, and so we can say hi again. And we hadn't got to see each other probably for 6 months or so. Wes, introduce yourself.
Hello. And no matter what he said about me, it can't all be true.
So all those good things I said, I lied.
That's about right.
Yeah. So, as always, name of the podcast is Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life. And today, the bourbon we are drinking, Wes was kind enough to bring it to us today, is Full Curl bourbon. It is a straight bourbon whiskey. And I am going to give the camera to Wes. So look into that camera and to explain to everybody about Full Curl bourbon whiskey.
Well, Full Curl bourbon whiskey was introduced to me by a friend of mine, a mutual friend of Steve and I's. And it's just a good, easy drinking bourbon, which I like. I'm kind of into Canadians and other types of whiskeys like that, and so I like it to be smooth and not hot, and this is not. This is something that anybody can drink straight or on the rocks or anything like that. I can't remember exactly what it cost per bottle, somewhere in the $40 to $50 range. I can't find it locally. I have to order it.
So where do you get it out of?
I actually go, I think it's Shots Box. But you go to the Full Curl website, and then you order, and they direct you to the thing. And each one, a portion of their sales goes to the Wild Sheep Foundation, which is a great organization, and they're kind of neat. They have, other than bourbon, they have a rye, they've got a gin, and on the back of each bottle, there's a different type of wild sheep. I think it's the North American desert sheep on the back of the bourbon. I think the gin has the stone sheep. The rye has the Dall sheep.
Well, I was just looking at the ram on the back of this. So you look through the bottle, folks, and it's on the label, and it's kind of cool looking here. So where's this stuff made, Wes? I can't remember. I think it's for some reason I want to say it's on Wyoming. The very bottom there.
Bozeman, Montana. I wanted to say Wyoming. Bozeman, Montana is where it's distilled at. So it's not a Bourbon County, Kentucky bourbon.
No,
but you can taste the barrel in it, like we talked about earlier. So
first, folks, you guys have heard me rant and rave and curse about this. Not curse, but a plastic cork. So I saw the plastic cork, and I was honestly disgusted. I was scared. I was very, very scared that Wes just spent a bunch of money to get this bottle to us, shipped to us, so we could try it today. And this plastic cork, you guys know, historically has ended up being a very bad experience for me. And but in this case, this is actually a pretty good bourbon. It isn't as robust as I personally like a bourbon to be, but I can taste the barrel in this bourbon. So you guys all remember the clover from last week. When Wes got here, I was like, try this, because I still haven't drank any more of it. I was like, Wes, try this. So what did you think about that compared to this?
Well, that was drinkable, but it would probably be after I finished this bottle. If the party was still going, we'd drag her out.
We'd drag her out. One of those things that you're drinking it because you can't taste anything else.
Right.
So what I was trying to get at is we can taste the barrel in this. You couldn't taste any barrel in that. It wasn't that Clover isn't a bad whiskey, but it shouldn't have the name bourbon attached to it at all.
And I've got to be straight up and honest with you. I like bourbon, but I am not the bourbon connoisseur that you are, or nor the other Steven is, or
Well, let's face it.
I'm a cowboy, and I like my whiskey like I like my food. I want hot, brown, and plenty of it.
Yeah.
That's how I like my food. I want my whiskey cold, brown, and plenty of it.
Yeah. You just don't want the whiskey too terrible hot.
No, I don't.
some
I'm not
ice
much
on
of
it.
the big. It's kind of like I know everybody, all these beer guys and these IPAs, and
Ugh.
my gosh, they you might as well just eat straight hops. I don't know, it's crazy, and I think we've kind of gotten.
Oh, it's fine.
Anytime something gets popular, everybody wants to go to an extreme on it, and that's what I found with all these bourbons is that everybody's got some hometown distillery and they've got it so freaking hot you can't drink it.
There are
Personally, I don't like it.
Yeah, there are some bourbons that are real hot, and let's be honest, I'm not near the bourbon connoisseur that Steven is. Right. Steven is a friend of ours. He is the president of Camo Adventures, which I've got one of their classes here. Camo Adventures, they are a organization that provides opportunities for veterans and wounded warriors to get out and hunt. So that we know Steven through some hunting opportunities that we've all had, and he's a really good guy. And just a little shout out for Camo Adventures. If you want to support a fantastic organization that supports veterans and the opportunity to get veterans back on their feet, go check out camoadventures.com. But, so, this is a good bourbon. It is much lighter than I normally drink. But it is good. I would recommend this. It's a really smooth drinking bourbon. Definitely smooth drinking.
Easy drinking. Just pour it and go to it.
Yeah, there's really no burn to it. Just a nice, smooth, and for a plastic cork, it's extremely smooth. I've had some really bad experiences with plastic corks. So,
hey, if one of I've got another friend that, and if we can't squeeze the bottle and make it come out faster, we're probably not going to drink it. So. And this is a glass bottle, so hey, I've really stepped up my
yes,
glass
you
here for you tonight.
Yes, you have. I'm going to tell you this: those plastic bottles in my youth, I've met plenty of them, and I've drank out of plenty of them. Now that I'm a little older, I prefer to have the stuff in a glass. But here nor there, it is really good. Well, you guys can already tell this is going to be a hoot. So, what we're going to do is, again, full curl whiskey. You cannot get it in Kansas. You need to order it from fullcurl.com or full curl something.
It's full curl something. If you Google full curl whiskey, you'll find it.
Okay, and what they mean by the full curl is to shoot a sheep or a ram. The ram has to have a full curl
right, and that makes
in its horns.
About 8 years old. Usually it takes about 8 years for that full curl to happen. So then you're shooting the mature ram, which is a basic in hunting conservation. We're going to shoot the mature animals when we're trophy hunting, because we're kind of doing that natural thing of taking that older mature animal, because how far do we want to go?
No, keep going.
The older mature animal is at its sunset years.
Yes.
And by all accounts, all studies, the younger bucks are the ones
doing the breeding.
Rams are the ones that are doing the breeding. So it's their time. It's kind of it's a natural course of everything. Thank you, Theodore Roosevelt, for bringing that up to everybody's attention.
Yeah. So when you buy full curl alcohols,
it's kind of like saying Irish wristwatch.
Yes. Yes. Full. You got me laughing now. Full curl. I'm going to say alcohols because they have a gin.
Spirits. Mhm.
Spirits. There you go.
Yep.
Full curl spirits. When you buy those, you will be contributing to the
Wild Sheep Foundation.
Wild Sheep Foundation at the same time, which is a fantastic thing. And jumping back to your statement that by taking the older animals, it's just part of natural succession.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is a hunter with a well-placed shot is 10,000 times more humane than that mountain lion getting it.
Guarantee it, or dying of starvation, or whatever.
Yeah,
else, whatever else
when they
happens.
lose their teeth or
Absolutely.
whatever. So the hunting aspect of taking an older animal is actually very, very, very humane and very good for the animal and good for the person because now they get to eat the meat and they get to have their prize and
all part of it. And I think it. We get into the whole trophy hunting thing, and somehow or another, trophy hunting has gotten this bad name because they've wrongly assumed that you're only there for the trophy.
correct.
And there, while I'm not saying there aren't bad hunters out there aren't people out there in the entirety of history since a trophy on the wall became a thing
Yeah,
that weren't just there for the trophy, and probably still today. But trophy hunting in itself has probably contributed more to the conservation efforts than anything else ever has,
yes,
because that money goes directly. There's a conservation tax on guns and ammunition.
yes.
There's a conservation when you go buy-
Robert Pittman Act, which so much of your purchase of firearms and ammunition directly goes back into the preservation of wildlife habitat and all
Yes.
that stuff. So
and then those hunters are also they're buying clothing and equipment and everything else, and all those companies, if they're making hunting gear, they're going to be probably contributing to organizations that are into habitat, into preserving. We're not out there hunting them because we want them gone. We want them there.
to thrive.
We want them to thrive,
grow.
so that we can hunt them our entire lives and take our sons and daughters and wives
Amen.
and girlfriends, just not at the same time.
No, you take your wife and a girlfriend at the same time, you're going to have some problems.
You're going
aren't
to have
you?
an issue.
Don't. He didn't say that, Melissa. He's joking. So, and that's a pretty big thing. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is, like guides myself, so you're from Missouri, right? And you've hunted with us numerous times now.
Mm-hmm.
You bring a minimum of 2 groups down a year, and you guys hunt with us. So this is the thing that people don't understand about what outfitters do and what the hunting opportunities do is we bring money from out of state into our state. You guys buy ammunition, you guys buy clothes, you guys buy food, you guys buy fuel, you guys buy all this stuff. Out of state people that would not normally be here spending their money in our state, in our community, without the opportunity to go hunting and without the opportunity to come to an outfitter like myself to spend that money, and it only benefits the state.
It benefits it benefits just everyday Joes like you and me, that it's, I know it's not your full-time deal,
Yeah.
but that's still part of your income.
Yes, it
It's
is.
part of what you count on every year when you make your family budget.
Yep.
That goes into it.
Yeah. It is what we use to grow our business. And without people like yourself and others that come down and spend money with us, it's really difficult for us to be able to grow and open up more opportunities for more people. So our bird business actually gives away hunts to kids.
Sure.
And we give away hunts to veterans. So we couldn't do that if we didn't have people coming hunting with us.
Sure.
Because we wouldn't have the extra resources, because when we give those hunts away, we make nothing on those.
Sure. In fact, that's the first time we came on. I think it was one that I bought off of the.
Yep.
I had some of that.
Turkey Federation.
Yeah. I couldn't remember which organization it was, but I think I'd had a little bit of
Liquid
courage,
brown,
and plenty of it. And I was checking my email, and I saw an auction, and I'm pretty good about putting a little. I don't get usually carried away on those types of things, but I like to. A lot of times what happens is if you can put a minimum bid on, if you can get something kicked off,
Yep.
it'll bring some money.
Yeah.
You just need someone to bid on it.
Yep.
And because if someone sees it, hey, someone else says that's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's probably good. It's worth $10 more, to $50 more.
Yeah.
And then someone else comes along. Anyway, so I'm pretty good about putting minimum bids on stuff, and I think I may have put a little bit more than the minimum bid on that because I kind of had the idea. I kind of like the idea of the pheasant because I'd never been pheasant hunting, and of course the quail are all but gone in our area. We can't.
Yeah.
I can't quail hunt like I did when I was a kid.
No.
In my area, so I kind of like the idea of it. So I think I put in a little bit more than minimum. Anyway, won the auction, and that's what the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. And so ever since then, you've been back
Yeah.
two times a year for the last
Absolutely,
three or 4 years,
It was an
something like that.
absolute blast. It was absolutely. It was not what I expected it to be.
So
It was better,
but
it was everything I wanted it to be.
yeah. So what did you expect it to be? Tell us, because you told me what you kind of expected.
Yeah, I kind of expected maybe a little, a decent enough kind of place to stay. I really didn't think it would be a horrible place to stay or anything, but I expected something kind of decent enough to stay, and some, some frozen biscuits and mixed gravy in the morning, and maybe some eggs, and then bologna sandwiches for lunch, and we'd walk 150 yards from the house and walk back and forth on 20 acres of millet or something that was kind of out there to make you feel like you were walking, and you'd shoot all of our birds in an hour and come back in, and so we brought plenty of brown and plenty of it, so
Yeah. So what did you end up getting?
we ended up walking all over God's creation, and hunting birds, and it kind of felt like it was a hunt. And that's, there's only so much. Let's just talk reality here. There's only so much you can do with a set and take
Bird experience. Yeah.
But I have never been on a set and take bird hunt that felt as true as that one. And we got to pick up I think even in that hunt, we picked up some extra birds that were left over, and especially on the quail side. Once we went to the quail in the afternoon, we picked up some extra birds, and it was really, and the dogs were great. That was the other thing. I'm a dog guy, and cattle dogs, but when you're a dog guy, you appreciate all working dogs.
Yes.
And I just appreciated watching those dogs work, and it was just, and now since we've been there the years, seeing your young dogs grow, and then seeing them this year actually pulling points and old
Taking
mom,
charge.
and old mom saying, "You got it. I ain't gonna work as hard.
I'm not gonna work as hard." So you expected subpar food. So what was your food like?
Oh my gosh, that I was telling a guy the other day, I was kind of advertising for you, and I said, I go out there and we walk like crazy. I'm so tired, I'm wore out, and I still gained 10 pounds in 3 days. Guarantee you, if someone leaves unsatisfied in the food category from your place, they're stupid.
Yeah. Well,
apparently they didn't eat.
Yeah. Apparently they chose not to eat.
Apparently they must have been a vegan or something.
Yeah. Well, a vegan would have a rough row with us.
Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah. So the accommodations were satisfying.
Oh yeah, they were great, and that old farmhouse that's been totally redone and everything. I mean, it's fantastic. It's the perfect setting for the bird
hunting
experience.
opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like it really has that. I don't know. When I go hunting, well, for example, last winter I went with a friend. We went outad hunting in West Texas, and it kind of had a. We want when I go somewhere and do something, I want the full experience.
Yeah.
So we were West Texas outad hunting, quasi sheep. I mean, they're really a goat, but it's quasi sheep hunting. So I took my bottle of full curl bourbon, and we didn't open it. We weren't going to open it until both of us had shot our rams, and so anyway, we got the full experience of the West Texas, and it was outad hunting. It was the quasi sheep hunting. So you got that full experience. We were hiking through those Davis Mountains, and I want that when if I go deer hunting in the North Woods, I want it to be some little hunting shack cabin, and cooking on a wood stove or whatever. But I kind of wanted it to be an old Kansas farmhouse, and it's exactly what I mean. So the full experience is just. Anytime I do anything, I don't care whether it's riding horses or I want the full. I want it to be. I just kind of like to excess almost. So I want the experience to excess.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's a really good experience that we're able to put on for people. I'm going to ask you one more question about the hunts you guys have come down on. So. Last year, you brought your youth Lutheran men group down, right? And
loosely put Lutheran. We really don't. It's not organized. It's just. But yeah, that's what we called it.
Yeah.
It was a good excuse.
It was a good excuse.
Yeah.
So they were giving you a hard time because you said the food was so good, and they didn't believe you.
Right.
So, kind of sum up for us real quick on what their thought process was after. It was all said and done.
Well, they didn't. I said, man, we're going to have. He said he was going to cook prime rib the first night when we got there, and they didn't believe me. They were expecting bologna sandwiches like I was, the first time, and we got there and they couldn't believe it. They just absolutely could not believe it. They all gained. I think we all left there bigger. We all had to ask forgiveness for gluttony by the time we got done with that weekend.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
So I just want to make this point. So the guys that were like, this, I don't believe you, but we'll go with you, Wes, whatever. You guys automatically rebooked before you ever left, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. I think when we got done with the prime rib that they were already ready to book. I think they were ready to book. Just come back and eat.
Just come back and eat. So that's always a good thing to hear. We put a lot of pride in what we do as outfitters. We understand that there's anywhere in Kansas you can go and get a bird hunt. Anywhere in Kansas you can go to get a turkey hunt or deer hunt. But we really pride ourselves in making it the full experience, like you're talking about. And
that's the great thing, and that's the reason we keep coming back, because it is you can go. Just about every town's got a great restaurant, and you can go eat, and you can kind of go bird hunting. You can do this, but when you get it all put together, it's absolutely fantastic.
Where you can walk out of the field, go straight into the house, get your dark and cold and plenty. Sit down and relax and have all your food ready for you. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about, did I have one more drink than I probably should have before I drive back to where we're staying. Everything's just right there for you.
That was the absolute best thing too. Is I love the opportunity to stay over, especially since it's so far.
Yeah.
But we can come out the day before, put the extra night's lodging on the deal. Yeah. And stay there. Then you're fully prepared to get up in the morning. You walk out the door and start hunting, and you come back and you've got all night.
All your meals provided for you all day long.
Yeah, and you just you come in the door and kick your boots off and
chill.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, you're done.
Pretty soon there's food in front of you.
And then you're ready to take that nap.
Yeah, then you're ready to go to sleep.
So we went way off track all of a sudden. So we're going to jump back on track here real quick.
We might have gotten ahead of ourselves by an hour and a half.
Well, that's the thing about this podcast. You never know where it's going to go. So what I got Wes on the podcast for wasn't any of that. But Wes Spinks is a cattle buyer out of Missouri. He is the inspiration, or his company is the inspiration behind Wes Rub Me Down Barbecue, Wes Spinks Ranch Beef Rub, with our other business, Rub Me Down Barbecue. And so what I want Wes to do is give a little bit of background of what he does for a living. He is an entrepreneur of a different type than what we've had on here in the past. I know Wes used to raise cattle. I believe he still raises some cattle. Mm-hmm. I've seen some funny comments about burnt hands trying to rope some young cattle to give it a shot or something. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm going to have Wes describe what he does, kind of tell us a little bit about your business and everything else, and just go for it, buddy.
Yeah, well, we moved to Missouri in 1979. I was 3 years old, and so I basically grew up there, basically Missouri. And they don't quite accept me because I wasn't born there, but but my kids were, so they kind of have to.
They have to take you in that part of it now.
Yeah. So, but Dad wanted to run cattle. His family had ran cattle and farmed in California, the Central Valley of California near Madera. Had been there. His
California.
Son, California.
You're a Californianite.
Californian born, yes.
Yeah, really?
Born in Fresno, California, and I have family that had been there since before the gold rush.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you carry around one of them multicolored flags too?
Yeah, well, that's God's promise that he's never going to flood the earth again. So you better carry one. It's kind of ironic that. Do we even want to go?
I poked you. I poked you.
But hey, if we want to go down that road, let's go down this road. It's kind of ironic that the world was flooded for sin.
Yeah.
And now, probably because sexual sin is probably been the most prominent sin forever. Forever.
Yeah.
And so now that has picked up that promise as their sign. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So.
Yeah. It's pretty unique, isn't it? Yeah.
It's rather ironic. But anyway, so back to coming from California. Dad wanted to be able to run cattle, and they operated on Dad and grandfather had all operated on leased land, some pretty big pieces of leased land right there in the Central Valley, and never really purchased anything. And so he went to Vietnam, and his dad got cancer in the meantime, and he asked Dad, "What do you want me to do with the leases?" And Dad said, "Well, I don't even know if I'll make it back." So he said, "You better let him go and take care of yourself." And so that's what happened. Long story short, he was looking for a place, and they looked all over the United States, from Nevada to Oklahoma, ended up in Missouri, where you can run a cow per cow unit. It's the cheapest place to run and it proved, and it's absolutely proven. We were second in cow-calf production in the United States forever. I think we're third right now, right behind Oklahoma. Which
who's first?
Texas. Texas will always be the first.
Yeah.
There's just so many square miles down there that they're just so far out there ahead of everybody else. But as far as cow-calf production, Missouri's been, so it's a great place to. And his original idea when he moved there was to he wanted to run yearlings, graze yearlings, buy calves off the cow-calf guy, the guy that raised the calves. He wanted to buy those calves and then have them for a period of time, graze them, grow them, and then sell them as feeders. And he thought that was a perfect spot to do it. The grass was readily available. You didn't have to worry about, a drought doesn't last much longer than one season.
Yeah.
Wasn't a big deal. So he was really looking for that area. The other thing he wanted to run was, at that time, a lot of independent hog producers around, sows. And so there was a lot of small weanling pigs.
Piglets, yep.
And so he wanted to do steers and feeder cattle and feeder pigs. And he wanted to do it in a building, which at the time seemed crazy. No, everybody, and he couldn't find financing to do it. And
now look what's going on.
Yeah, now look at it. He couldn't find financing to get it done. They said, this is cows and sows country, and you can't do anything else, and we're not going to loan you any money to do anything else. So he had the land, but didn't have the financing to do, so he ended up with cows and whatnot, and we moved there, like I said, we moved there in 1979, which was right before the big drought and the crash of the 80s in the ag sector, and so we had a pretty tough go of it there through that time, and just between flat, pure determination and grit, made it through it, but it really when you have that big of a setback and that big of a hit, it takes years to recover. So,
oh, yeah.
By the time I was graduating high school, they were kind of in a little bit better spot. My mom said I had to have a job. I wanted to, as soon as I got old enough to drive, so I worked the summer between my sophomore and junior year. I worked for a friend of ours that had a registered Simmental operation. Simmental cattle and raised bulls, and he was between hired hands and kind of. So I said, well, I'll work the summer for you. I kind of approached him. I said, hey, I'll take care of your cows for the summer. That'll give you time to find the right guy and go from there. So that's what I did. And then between my junior and senior year, I wanted to stay home and help Dad. And Mom said, nope, you got to find a job. So I looked in the back of Western Horseman magazine and help wanted ads and got a job in Vail, Colorado, guiding horseback rides. And Mom helped me make the resume and everything and send it out there. And then when I got hired, she wasn't real sure if she wanted to let me go or not. But it was a really nice guy, a really nice couple that owned the place, and they talked to Mom and Dad, and everybody felt comfortable out. And I ended up riding the train out there the first year, and then went back between my senior and freshman year in college, and between my freshman and sophomore year in college. Went to Crowder U in Neosho, Missouri. Crowder College is a little junior college in Neosho, Missouri, and spent 2 years majoring in, just my true major was ranch management. So we'll just leave it at that. But met my wife there, Melissa, and
she probably saved your life, didn't she?
Oh, I imagine, yeah.
I'm
I
sure
wouldn't
she
have
did.
mounted the hill of beans for that. We'd have started stuck.
Too many plastic bottles out there for you.
There's way too many plastic bottles out there without her, I guarantee you. So we got married right out of high school or out of college, and then I worked for an Angus ranch on the commercial side. Actually, they had bought a place, a fair-sized place from Missouri, actually pretty close to where I grew up at. And we worked there for a year, and we decided that neither one of us was having much fun, and we weren't really making any money. So
Yeah.
we were going to do something. We were going to either make a lot of money and do what we wanted to on the weekends, or we were going to go do what we wanted to. So we looked in the back of Western Horseman magazine and got another job riding horses in Colorado, and this time we were in Canyon City, guiding into the Royal Gorge.
Really?
So we did that for a year together, and then we decided that we were done with people and wanted to get back to just horses or cows or something. So We came home and were absolutely poor and broke. And one thing that my dad had done in the past, and I'll tell you, you know, you used the word entrepreneur, and when you asked me to do this, and you use that word, then that was one of the things that your podcast focuses on. And I thought, I am not an entrepreneur. I always kind of think of an entrepreneur as someone that had his own ideas, that kind of was almost an inventor, if you will, of a business. That was my own thoughts of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, I do have my own business, but it's riding on the shirt tails of somebody else, and I absolutely really have had zero new ideas. I have taken, and I have had the opportunity with my mom and dad's true grit of sticking there and sticking it out, making that place where we had the place. Then I was able to take his ideas, because now we're in a position where we can do it and put them to work. And so, you know, I take no credit for the ideas, and I hope that I was the one that implemented them, but sure couldn't have done it without him and my parents and Melissa's parents and everybody that helped us along the way. But so one of the things that he had done is he had backgrounded cattle or started cattle for other people. And what that means is they buy a calf off of a cow from somebody at the sale barn, off of somebody, and they would send them to him for a period of time. He would get them weaned. He would get some vaccines in them, get them on feed, get them prepared for their next stage of their life. We always used to call it college for cattle. That'd be that stage of their life, and then they would go on either to graze in the Flint Hills, usually from our area, graze in the Flint Hills, or grazing on wheat, whether that would be Oklahoma or Kansas, and then or on directly to the feedlot somewhere where they would finish them. And so I kind of worked on making contacts and finding a few deals, and kind of got started with an outfit in Scott City, Kansas, and started cattle for them. Started cattle for a lot of people that were going on to graze, and then between leasing some other places along the way, and we had got into. I met a gal that worked for the Nature Conservancy, that was running some land managed by the Missouri Department of Conservation, and they were leasing it out to graze cattle on. There was part of a study for wildlife habitat, or they were using the results of the study for wildlife habitat, using cattle to graze in the manner that buffalo would on tallgrass prairie. And through hours of work and talking and quite a bit of BS to sell my ideas, you know, we kind of got in on that. And so for a long period of time, we grazed a lot of cattle our own, and then also for other people. Those were 3-year deals. You had to bid on them. And so what I would do is, and of course the bidding process was usually right in the middle of the winter, so I wouldn't have time to buy cattle and prep them for that.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is there was always somebody that had cattle that would be ready for it. So the first year I would always I would find somebody else's cattle to graze for them that first year, and then I knew I had it for 2 years, and I would stock it myself. So we did that till that deal kind of crapped out. There was other, you know, that was the Upland Bird guys that were sure enough pushing that idea.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was, I mean, absolute upland bird habitat. That's what they were looking for.
I've seen a lot about the go in, burn it, and then as the grass starts to come up, then you put cattle on it, so cattle can come in, graze on that grass that has basically taken over the prairie, and the cattle would go in and break the ground, literally. They would break the ground and fertilize everything at the same time. Break the ground so the flowers and the pollinators and things like that can get up and have the opportunity to grow while the cattle are breaking down the grass, so you create more of a native prairie.
What happens on that prairie is, in anything, it somehow or another becomes a monoculture. And
yes.
So if you have it just where it's absolutely, and this has happened in the Flint Hills to some respect, even on the grazing areas, because they are strictly managing basically for big bluestem. that's the grass that puts on the weight on the
Yep.
cattle. They're managing it strictly for that. So while we have a great big piece of native tallgrass prairie left in the Flint Hills, and hopefully always will have,
Yes.
it's not going to be the perfect habitat like we're trying to create. What they were doing is they were going in, they were burning a third. We had a perimeter fence around a big pasture.
Yep.
They would burn a third of that. Excuse me. Usually tried to make it at least in 3 pieces. And try to make it where it wasn't just one big patch of the third of it.
Yeah.
And then they would stock it according, and this is the magic number we finally came up with through trial and error with those guys, was 160 pounds of cattle at turnout per acre.
Oh.
That was for the whole pasture. So if the pasture was 100 acres, they burned 33 acres of it, and we would turn out 160 pounds to the acre for the entire 100 acres. So 100 times 160.
Yeah.
16,000, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I'm a cattle buyer. I know all these numbers. Right
It's
off the
math.
bat. Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be fast at that. But anyway, I've had too much of the brown stuff. But anyway, and what would happen is they would quote unquote buffalo that burned area. They just hammered it. They just ate the crap out of it, ate it to the ground, kept it very, very short the entire time. And that would create leks. It would be areas for the upland game birds to feed.
Define leks.
That's where their big focus at that time was. They were really, really trying to get some prairie chickens back in that area. And the leks would be where they breed in the spring.
Oh, okay.
So they needed basically just wore out ground on top of a hill.
Oh, so the birds can see each other and
Yep, they
breed.
would have they would have their dusting areas and they would be, that's where they would the roosters would boom and all that kind of stuff would be on the leks. And so that's what they were, and it also gave areas for those birds to feed. But now, so you have the perfect feeding, the perfect lekking area, but now you have to have, if it's
The
all
nesting.
that,
Yep.
you have to have some place for those to nest. You have to have some where they can dodge into when the hawk flies over, all that stuff. So they needed edges, and next to that edge, they needed thick grass. So the next year we would turn in on it, they would burn a different third of it. And it was so amazing to watch that, because that what they'd burned the year before and grazed, and it was grazed hard. I called them weeds. They called them forbs, but
Yeah.
all the crap grew up that makes wildlife habitat.
Yes.
The pollinators, all the stuff.
All the things the bees need.
Because the grass had been hammered the year before, so it didn't come back very fast. So all the weeds got ahead of it. And those cattle would hardly even step on that ground. They wouldn't even go across it hardly. You wouldn't even find tracks out there. And they would, of course, be grazing the other areas. And the interesting thing was, after we kind of got through that 3 years and then started over again, they would graze it real hard. Late in the season, they would start topping what was going to be grazed, what was going to be burnt the next year. They would kind of top graze it. You could see where they would go through it. They bedded in there. The cattle bedded in that area. It was really interesting to watch what happened and where those cattle were. But they would not hardly even touch that. But that basically had that year to recover. Then it recovered another year yet. And by that time, it was coming back to that monoculture of grass. And it was ready for a burn, and cleaned it up, and it came up in really good grass that year, because the grass had had a year to rest, to put its resources in its roots. It shot up, it got big, and the cattle were
See, what a lot of people don't understand is the quote-unquote weeds are actually putting nutrients back into the soil.
Yes.
Where the nutrients that the grass is using up, when it becomes monoclonal, where there's only one grass basically out there, that grass is sucking up all the nutrients out of ground, all those weeds and the pollinators and all those things, along with the cattle going across there and fertilizing it naturally, all those things are what we need to do to create good habitat. And by rotating it, you create good feed at the same time.
Yes, and you kept that, and that one of the things that they were always worried about was overstocking. They always wanted to make sure the stocking was just perfect.
Yeah.
And I said, there's no reason to be that. Let's just do our best guess.
Yeah.
And we'll put them out there. If it's too much, we'll take some off next year. Because nature is reactive. It's not proactive.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a tree go, well, I better not grow too much this year because it's going to be dry next year?
No.
No, it's raining. I'm going to grow.
Yep.
It's reactive. It's reacting to what the climate is that day.
Yep.
And so I said, the best thing we could do for this is screw up so we can
See what happens.
go back too far the other way the next year, because that's
Yeah.
what happened. You think about these buffalo herds going across this area right here where we're sitting. If it was a good year, there was a lot of them, or there became a lot of them because more of them bred back. More survived, and then until they got it overpopulated, or a drought came along, and they didn't breed back as well, and calves died because everything was starving to death, and the next thing you know, there's not enough of them, and then there's too much grass, and it's just a constant cycle. And we get so carried away with just trying to make sure everything's right. Well, chill out and
just see what happens.
See what happens and react to it.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a better habitat for whatever it is, whether it's the cow that we've raised, or whether it's pheasants, or whether it's quail, or whether it's deer, anything, whatever's out there, it's going to be better for it.
Yeah.
If we react, but I guess reactionary, I think that's kind of a bad term, isn't it? When you're reactionary.
Yes. It's a hate phrase.
Yeah. I guess that's right. So I don't know. But anyway, that's my opinion. That's just, so back where I was. Anyway, so I was doing that, and all this time I had really been looking for this full-time backgrounding deal where someone would be sending me cattle all the time.
Yeah.
Because it was a cash flow thing. It was a thing that you got to check every month for. And when you're running cattle, you get a paycheck whenever you sell them. If that's once a year, you get a paycheck once a year. If it's twice a year, you get a paycheck twice a year. What I needed was something that I could fill up my fuel tanks with.
Yeah.
Till I got the cattle sold. So I didn't have to live off borrowed money. I didn't. I needed something I could buy milk and bread with, without having it off of a operating note.
Yeah.
And so that was always my thing, and I had been working for that, and never did find one. And in the meantime, I'd kept working on my own thing. Finally got my own thing to where we were kind of making it. We were kind of doing all right. And a cattle buyer that I had met through one of my previous seasonal backgrounding deals said, hey, I know this outfit in Broken Bow, Nebraska, and they're looking for full-time backgrounders, and you care if I give them your name? And I said, no, that's fine. But by this time, I really wasn't that interested in it. And but I thought, well, it's worth a talk. So he gave them my name, and I think we were in California. We had went out there for a ranch roping contest in Alturas, and we had flown to San Francisco and rented a car. And I was actually driving through San Francisco traffic, and this guy calls me, and I couldn't hardly hear him. It's traffic, and I live in Osiris, Missouri, population 2. Well, actually, it's 5 now. I've got 3 kids. So,
yeah.
It's just me and my family there. So, traffic jams are, when the deer are crossing the road. So, trying to make it up to there, I couldn't understand the guy. So, finally, we met with some, we went to a cutting horse trainers that we kind of knew, and we stayed at their condo, and we'd rode their horses that day and one thing or another. And the next morning, I'm sitting there in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California, and I on the back porch of their condo and called the guy and told him I was on vacation, and so we kind of set up a meeting when I would be back, or actually I think he said, well, just call me when you get home and we'll set up a meeting. And so they came down, and of course I'm thinking this is just some little podunk feed yard,
Yeah.
Not a big deal. And so him, it was the guy that I talked to on the phone, and the actual owner of the feedlot came down, and I wasn't really that crazy about it. I didn't know whether I really wanted to do it or not, and I thought, well, they're not going to mess with me anyway. Excuse me again. These guys are probably not going to want to do anything anyway. I was pretty well just set up for what I was doing, and so and I never even took them in the house. I remember it was a windy day in September, and it was kind of cloudy, and I never even took them in the house. I just made them stand out in the wind. The whole conversation. By the end of it, they said, "Well, can you take cattle next week?" And I was like, "No, I can't take cattle next week." At that time, September was kind of our down month. All the cattle were shipped, and September was our month that we weaned. We did have still do, but we had a small cow-calf herd, and so we weaned our calves that month. We kind of got everything ready, fixed pences, pushed manure, got everything set to start buying again. We bought October through Christmas, and then we would run that set of cattle all year and graze them through the summer and sell them in August. So September was kind of my down off month, and I really wasn't anyway. So we started. It was September. I got my first load of cattle in September of 2009 with them, and worked with them for a while. Finally realized that they were not a podunk feedlot, that they had 100,000 head capacity in their feedlot.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, they were at 60,000 outside the feed yard with backgrounders. And I think that number is bigger yet now.
So, because you keep using the phrase backgrounders, define that.
Backgrounder is someone that usually runs cattle for somebody else, and it's that college for cattle period of their life. And backgrounding has a pretty wide range. You can background your own. Maybe you're a backgrounder, but you buy your own cattle. You get them backgrounded, then you sell them. You add value to them because now they're weaned. Now they've all had the same shots. They're all the same type and kind. And you maybe buy them one or two at a time, and now you've got a semi-truckload of them that someone's going to be interested into. You've added value. Maybe you've added value between just by getting them weaned and prepared for the next step. Maybe you've added value by actually feeding them, getting them bigger, adding weight to them.
Okay. So you did the backgrounding. Mm-hmm. So you're a buyer now. Mm-hmm. So I know you're getting there.
Just give me time.
Okay, I'm giving you time. Sorry.
So at that time, they were buying a lot of cattle out of the extreme southeast. Tennessee, Alabama, Virginia, South Carolina, and I think they still do. I don't ask a lot of questions. It's since I've moved into this other role with them. It's none of my business. When I was a backgrounder, I knew because I was getting cattle from those areas. So, and I was thinking, man, there's a lot of cattle around here. This is Missouri, where we got more cows than any state but Texas at the time. Or maybe Oklahoma had moved into second place at that time. I can't remember. But anyway, we got more cows than all these other states. Why aren't they buying them right here? And I kept kind of hammering on them. Why don't we buy cattle right here? And they had a buyer, and I don't know what the whole situation was. Again, I don't know, and they never did tell me. But
it just didn't work out.
Wasn't working for him anyway. So finally, after all this. Well, in fact, it got to a spot where they had shut down the whole southeast buy, so I wasn't getting any cattle at all from them. By this time, I'd kind of, this had been just a few years later. I'd kind of become to depend on them.
Yeah,
it was my paycheck, and by that time, the grass deal, and I'd kind of become depending on them in a big way because my grass deals with the Nature Conservancy and the MDC had kind of changed, and they weren't doing what they were doing because of some other internal issues that they had. So I was just kind of begging for something to do, and I thought, why don't you let me buy right here? I can go to some of these little bitty barns. You never get any cattle out of them. Buy a few of them at a time, and if I bought a load a week, what would be a load going out of here in a week? It'd be local. I would have an easier time. I was just trying to make my job easier.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be a cattle buyer. I was just really trying to make my backgrounding job easier. Instead of getting something that was a balling calf that had been on a truck for 20 hours, his stomach was dead because he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 2 days. It was going to make my job easier.
Yeah.
And so finally, after they shut the Southeast buy down, I wasn't getting any cattle. They called me up one day, again in September. It's always September. And said, hey, are you still interested in being a buyer? And I said, well, yeah. I said, by this time I had bought them a few cattle locally from other producers that had load lots of cattle. Not very many. But I had worked. I'd got my minimum bond. I could legally buy cattle for somebody on commission. I said, yeah. So they gave me 3 barns. They're big enough. They don't want two of their own buyers in the same sale barn, so they kind of assign you a barn. They gave me 3 sale barns: Springfield, Missouri, Humansville, Missouri. No, they gave me 4 barns. Take that back. The Springfield, which was on Wednesday, and then Humansville, Osceola, and Butler, or Mocan, what is known as. They gave me those 4 sale barns. They also allowed me, like, I couldn't make all 3 of those, or all 3 of those on Thursday. But what I could do is I could go to Humansville. They sold calves first, and then Osceola, which was just up the road, sold cows first. So I could go to the calf sale at Humansville, and then drive up the road and hit the calf sale at Osceola.
There you go.
And they allowed me to have another person buy for me at Mocan, at Butler. So I started doing that, and it started out basically buying gooseneck loads of cattle and bringing them to my place. And there was also another backgrounder near me that I would bring those calves to. And I guess, when you've worked your whole life, as you get up in the morning and you'd saddle a horse and you ride pins, you're doctoring these cattle, you're working. This was the first lawyer job I ever had.
Lawyer job.
It was. I called it my lawyer job. My mom used to always, she kind of always sang that song, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Yeah.
She said, just be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief, or something else, something.
Something other than a cowboy.
Yeah, but Mama tried, but it didn't work. So anyway, it was easy, and it was easy to work at it.
Yeah.
And easy to get better. And I'll guarantee you, there's a great movie, or I say it's a great movie. It's my favorite movie. It's called Pocket Money. It's got Lee Marvin and Paul Newman in it. And Paul Newman kind of plays this cattle buyer guy.
Yeah.
And he says, I know how to bid, I just don't know when. And that was a perfect description of me when I first started buying cattle.
Really?
I mean, I had some experience of buying my own cattle and one thing or another, but the first thing you learn is that you have to take an order. Your name of it is an order buyer, so you have to take an order. So it's just like if you're a waiter at a restaurant,
Yeah.
and you tell me I want a cheeseburger and fries, and I bring you a hot dog and tater tots. Now, the hot dog and tater tots might be better than the hamburger,
But that's not what I ordered.
That's not what you ordered, and that's not what you want, and it's going to go back. And that's so. Anyway, they paid a lot of tuition. I have a lot of respect for this company. They paid a lot of tuition for me to learn how to do my job, and I kept grinding at it and kept going. And my area has continually gotten bigger to the point it is now, and that's basically the line's kind of weird and squiggly, but it's somewhere around I-70, maybe Butler, and then kind of goes up to, anyways, like I said, it's weird and squiggly, but if you can kind of basically say 70 south in Missouri, and I've got that, any sale barn in that area, region that is I cover, or I have someone there covering it for me. And so it's a great area because there's a lot of cows there. What are you doing over there?
Choked.
I thought you said it was smooth.
It is. It's smooth until you try to breathe while you drink.
Don't do that. You can't. It's not inhaling.
Yeah, yeah. It's not an inhalant.
We're not snorting it.
No, boy, that one. Woo, it doesn't feel that great down the lungs. I can tell you that.
You can't make a line out of it.
No, that would be bad.
So anyway, so that's where I'm at now. We still have our small cow-calf herd. We've worked on that. I mean, I could tell you stories about that thing too. But we've kind of worked that up, and one of my dreams is always to have a really nice set of cows and raise top-end replacement heifers. And we've kind of accomplished that. We've been selling some replacement heifers, bred replacement heifers every year.
So, what is a replacement heifer?
Well, it's
I'm asking. I'm pretty sure I know what it means, but there's going to be someone out there that doesn't know what a replacement heifer is.
A heifer is a heifer that has not calved yet. A replacement means that she is of quality enough to be a mother cow.
Okay.
To raise, you would want offspring from her.
So a replacement heifer is a heifer. A replacement heifer is something that someone would purchase to put into their herd.
Yes.
To start producing calves.
Right. And it's
guaranteed good quality.
Good quality. Yep. And you kind of have to. I mean, a true replacement quality heifer. They have to be pretty darn good, and all of our heifers don't make it. The biggest thing is they've got to look like it. They've got to have the right build. They've got to have the right conformation. Second of all, they need to be calf hood vaccinated, which is brucellosis vaccine, which isn't required anymore. We're a bangs-free state, but we still do it. We also pelvic measure those heifers to help ensure that they're not going to have troubles calving. That's a big thing with the first calf heifer. The first calf they have, they want to make sure that they are able to have it without assistance. And so, anyway, we've worked for that goal for a long time through culling and one thing or another, and now we've got
culling,
cull, CULLING, getting rid of the stuff that doesn't work.
Okay. Yep.
And that's what we've
selective breeding.
Yes, we have a pretty tough regiment. If they're going to survive at our place, they're going to have to do it on their own and bring a calf to the weaning pen every year, regardless of what happens to it. You can stop by and see the calf along the fence on the road and steal it, and that cow's going to town. She should have been there to run you off. I can't babysit them. And we've done that. We've had that strict culling practices for years now.
So you guys are me being a dog guy, right? Mm-hmm. So when we bred Mom, no one was allowed in that room, but my wife and I, any dog that poked its head over the fence or over the whelping box got drove off. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is you're looking for strong mothering instincts, the ability to produce a calf, give birth to a calf, wean a calf, basically on its own.
Yes.
And the reason that is because it makes the cattle, the people buying your replacement heifers, much more. Your replacement heifers would be a higher quality, higher cost, and guaranteed that they have the bloodline to do all these things. Yes. So, and not counting the fact that they are people coming to steal them, what that does is also shows the breeding or the mothering instincts to stomp the crap out of a coyote or whatever to ensure that the calf survives.
Yes.
So that isn't a whole lot different than what we do with our dogs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, our dogs are pampered significantly more than cattle.
Mine are too.
Yeah. But the key is to get a dog that, or in your case, cattle that have good mothering instincts, and not to inbreed them to the point that they don't have good mothering instincts. but to breed also to create a repetitive body, repetitive personality, repetitive. So that's a pretty good plan.
Yeah, I mean we go back to the Longhorn. That's things we need our napkins back so you can wipe the water off of that.
That's what we got a fat belly for.
So we go back to the Longhorns and we think about the Longhorns and the basic history of the Texas Longhorn. They were pretty well on their own during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And so everything that couldn't survive died.
Yeah.
And so the bloodlines that were survivors that could have a calf, that the bulls that threw too big of calves, those calves died. Eventually, that bull died. That line wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you kind of made an old rangy thing that didn't have very much muscling and one thing or another. It wasn't truly what we're wanting today for our product for what we're eating.
No, but it survived.
So what we have to do now, we have the technology and the know-how to do it now. Why aren't we? Let's have it all.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do that.
Yes, we do.
And so that's my goal with it. Let's have it all. Let's have something that marbles good, that converts feed efficiently, that it breeds back every year. Those Longhorns probably didn't have a calf every year.
No.
But we've got to have it all. And it's in this environment, in this economical environment of production agriculture.
Yes.
We've got to have it all, or you're not going to survive.
No.
And people ask me, back when I was, I would get rid of a potload of cows every year because they weren't working.
Yeah.
Part of that was what I was buying. We didn't have a lot of capital to put into these things, so I was a price buyer. If it came through there, I usually bought cows in the fall with the second period cows, so they would be bred in the second period, which would make them spring calvers. Late fall, early winter is when I would buy them, and the best thing that could happen for me is if something came through on the fight, because there were some pretty good quality cows that came in there and in the ring at the sale barn and were on the fight, and no one wanted them. So the killer buyer would buy them, and he didn't really want them that bad either, because if they're on the fight, they're probably going to be bruised up.
Yeah.
The meat's not. So I could get them for killer price.
Yep. Okay, we had a little technical difficulty. We're back on heifers.
So that was one of the big things that I was kind of always wanted to do was be able to have a cow herd that was good enough to raise those quality heifers. And then the other thing we do is we still buy calves off the, basically what we call balling calves. So those are calves that are going to bawl when they get to you because they're not weaned.
Yeah.
They have not been away from their mother until they were taken to the sale barn. And so we provide them a decent place to be for a while and add value to them where they're not going to get sick and in the next step of the game. And the next step of the game for us was grazing. I love to graze yearlings. That's probably the biggest, my most favorite thing in the world is to graze yearlings.
Why is that?
I don't know. There's just something about cattle on grass that makes me happy.
I've got a buddy that he grazes his cattle. He's been growing his herd for a long time. He's a pretty big cattle guy, and he used to send me pictures because he had let him graze his front yard, everything, and he'd be sending me pictures of these big Angus bulls or Angus cattle in his front yard. He goes, "There's nothing more beautiful than this big black cow in the front of your yard eating your grass."
The guarantee if you don't have to mow the yard, it's a beautiful thing.
Amen.
We've got a fence around the yard now. I used to think it was I would not have a yard, but my wife enjoys her yard, and so we have one. So But grazing yearlings is my favorite thing. I like turning them cattle out and getting them big on the grass, and there's usually a pretty good market for off the grass yearlings in August, July, August. Just kind of a good time to sell those type of cattle. So that's my favorite thing. And then of course I've got this buying gig that just is kind of a monster that.
So you buy, and then and it ships to backgrounders.
Yeah, it ships to wherever. It kind of depends on the class of cattle that I'm buying.
Oh, okay.
So
Class of cattle.
Class of cattle would be, are they yearlings? Like the cattle that I sell off the grass, we would call those yearlings. They're actually probably about a year and a half old, but we call them yearlings. They're weighing 800, 900 pounds. Those cattle are going to go straight to a feedlot. The backgrounders, and it depends on where, I buy for the customer, and then they decide what those cattle are going to be for.
Okay.
And
so this goes back to your order.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a buyer that tells you I want XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And or a customer
Mm-hmm.
that says, hey, I want XYZ. And then you're the buyer and you go find it.
Yes. And most of the time it's 99% of the time it's at a sale barn, at an auction, the stockyards, whatever you want to call it. And so I would go there, and let's say there's someone that's wanting cattle ready to turn out on grass. Maybe let's say it's March, and those guys are wanting some cattle that are straightened out, weaned, and they're probably going to weigh somewhere between 550 and 650 is probably what their weight order, the weight of the calf is. That calf's going to be, I want something that's got a little age on it, and so they're going to want something that's probably about a year old, and thin, not fat, thin,
Yep.
got a little age, weaned out. It's been weaned out most of the winter. Been eating something. Someone's been hauling feed to them of some nature, but not so much that they're getting fat. They're just growing frame, and they're thin. Another order would be if there's someone's going to go straight to feed with them, they're going to want good quality, high quality, black, a weaned calf. A straight calf is something that's not been weaned. So if they say they want calves, they're probably wanting an unweaned calf. They're probably going to add that value by weaning it. So they're going to buy them for less money and add that value to weaning them, getting them prepared for that grass buyer, that guy that's going to go to grass for them. So, or they're going to go straight to feed with them. So they're going to maybe they're wanting a weaned calf that's weighing 500, maybe 400, maybe even 700. But they're probably going to carry a tick of flesh, but meaning they're going to have a little bit of fat on them, but not fat. Just they're probably going to be a little bit fleshier than what that grass buyer is going to be, and they're going to want super quality. They're going to want something that's going to grade. They're going to want that thing that's going to grade choice or prime.
How would you figure? So I've got two questions. I'm sure you got another level. Keep going.
Well, that's just giving you some examples of order.
Okay.
Maybe it's a feedlot. The other class of cattle would be the yearling, which is weighing 800 to 900 pounds, or maybe up to 1,000, and maybe from 750 to 1,000. And that calf, that yearling is going to be maybe is a backgrounded yearling, which he's out of a feedlot, little feedlot where they're actually feeding them. So they're usually worth less per pound because they're not going to convert. They're not going to gain as well as the grass yearling that has ate nothing but grass, and that's going to be the best grading, the best. I mean, those are going to be the best feeding cattle all year long. The ones that come off the Flint Hills, the Osage Hills, maybe even the Sand Hills in Nebraska, in the late summer, early fall, they've been on their own for a long time. They've ate grass and they're big. They've got the age. Those are going to be the best feeding cattle. And that's going to be more of a feeder cattle. That's the feeder cattle order.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm interested in.
Okay. Well, there's a whole bunch in between of everything I said.
So I'm going to go to your first one. So you got a buyer that wants a big frame, no fat, very, 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 very lean. So they're going to buy that with the intent to do a quick bulk up and flip?
Yeah, well, it could be. It could be. Let's say you're just wanting to put a quick 200 pounds on them with feed. You're still going to want that thin. Everybody kind of wants them thin. Most of the time,
well, you want them thin
because there's a thing called compensatory gain. So if they've been behind a little bit, maybe they're getting enough nutrition, just enough to maintain they're not losing weight, but they're not gaining weight. Or maybe they're just slightly behind. Maybe they don't have quite everything that they need. Still enough to kind of grow and survive, but not. Then you put them on like that high quality grass of the Flint Hills. They're going to just bust wide open is the term. They're going to just explode as far as they're going to gain
tons of weight
in a hurry. And so most everybody wants a thinner animal. If their intent is to put weight on it.
Okay.
Whether it's by grass or whether it's by concentrated feed or whatever, they're going to want a thin calf. Now, one of the things that I've done is the thin cattle always are they're worth more. They're going to bring more. So in order to buy enough to fill your pasture, I had to find a way to buy them cheaper.
Yeah.
So what I would buy would be bulls, young bulls that haven't been castrated yet, because they're worth less per pound when you buy them. Excuse me. The other thing is a fat ball and calf in the fall. There's tons of them everywhere. The fall calf run. So when everybody weans their calves and brings them to town, there's a lot of them out there. Their value isn't as high. But what I can do is I can buy that. My expertise was making sure that they lived.
Yeah.
They didn't get sick, providing them a good home with adequate nutrition and all those things, getting them weaned, and then I turned them into that thin, year-old, 600-pound grass steer. So over the winter time, I turned that fat calf into that. Now I've got something that's worth more. He hasn't gained a lot of weight. He might have been weighing 400 when I bought him, and he's only weighing 5.5, 570 now. But his value is more. And I haven't put a lot of feed in it. I've got some stockpiled fescue, which is just fescue standing hay or whatever you want to call it. It's just grass that's grown up out there. I didn't do anything with it. It's still out there in the pasture. Those cattle can go out there and eat that. They can live on it. They're going to gain some frame, but they're not going to get fat. They're going to look like a 16-year-old boy that he was the little chubby.
He just hit puberty and wow.
He was a little chubby guy and
yeah.
And then all of a sudden he hits that spot and the next thing you know he's actually shrunk and his pants are falling off, but they're hitting him about the knee. You know?
Exactly.
So that's what I'm turning that. So now they're that good-looking, strapping 16-year-old boy, not that fat, chubby sixth grader.
Yeah.
And so then that calf, I can either go to grass myself with, or sell it with the added value that it has. But I've added value by turning it into something else, not necessarily adding weight to it.
I see.
But there's also that way of if you've got cheap feed, you can add weight to it. That also adds value because now you buy that thin calf or you buy this or whatever, and you turn it into a yearling either through feed or grazing. Now you've added value to because it's bigger and it's got more weight to it. And grass cattle are never really the thinnest cattle. The cattle that come off of grass, the cattle that we're selling in July through September, those cattle are not the thinnest cattle in the world. They've got some flesh on them because they've been eating good all summer. But there's a big change when you start going into a concentrated feed with corn and all that kind of stuff. They just convert like crazy, and they just go because they've got that age. The older those cattle get, I mean, look at us.
Oh,
the older we get, the easier keeping. We don't have to eat near as much.
No, we don't know.
You know?
No.
I've got a 16, 17-year-old boy at home, and that boy
he'll eat us both under the table.
Yes, and never gain a pound, and we can smell his pizza. We can smell one of the 3 large pizzas he's eating and gain 10 pounds.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So that's basically. I mean, it's all the same concept. It's just we're just putting it in cattle instead of people.
I had a joke, but it was really inappropriate. But so
You are an inappropriate joke.
yes, I am. I'm an extremely inappropriate joke. So the bulk of your job is understanding what your customer wants, purchasing that cattle, and getting those cattle to that customer in a timely fashion.
Yes. And so they basically, the way my deal works is I have to actually buy the calf. Buy it and pay for it. So I'm sitting in a sale barn, or I have someone sitting in a sale barn because I have too many. I can't cover them all myself. So they're the ones that are bidding. The gavel falls. It's assigned to whatever number that they put it on. Whatever. That's billed to me. I pay for the sale barn, and I basically own that calf until I get it to my customer. And then at my customer's approval, they cut me a check, wire me the money, whatever, and pay me back plus commission.
So you are taking you better be good at your job.
Well, yeah.
You better be darn good at your job.
Like I said, the feedlot that I buy for has paid a lot of tuition for me to learn how to do my job because they kind of absorbed my mistakes at first.
Oh, that's nice.
One of the things, as big as they are, the little blip on the radar that I was at the beginning, it wasn't
Too bad.
It wasn't too bad. It wasn't that big of a deal. They could stand the mistakes.
The growing pains.
Right. But there came a point one day where I got the phone call. These aren't going to work. Here they are. Come get them. So you learn pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge slap in the face.
Yeah.
So
you learn pretty quick.
So let's say you do a purchase and it's everything you thought it was, and they say, nope. What do you do now? Take them to the sale yard?
Most of the time, if it depends on where they're at, what the situation is. A lot of times, something gets hurt during transportation. It's hurt at the sale barn before it goes on the truck and doesn't get noticed, or maybe it hurt itself, but you really didn't notice it limping or something. It gets up there and it's limping. Well, you've got one that's lame. Excuse me. I've got enough trucks going up there and back. I'm gonna buy them another load of cattle the next day.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is I'll try to get that on a truck coming back to me. Try to get it back to me.
Yeah.
If I can get it back to me, 90% of the time, sometimes I've gotten them, maybe it's 2 or 3 days before I get a truck that's close to where that calf is to pick it up, get it to me. I get it home and it's not even lame anymore. It stepped on a rock wrong when it was, we've got gravel. This time of year it's really wet. Their feet get soft. They go to the sale barn and there's gravel and stuff to keep them from slipping and to keep from being mud holes. And, they just get sore footed. Well, a few days later, they've already rejected it. So it's off their books. It's done. So even if it's well in a couple days, it's already off their books. I'll take it. Half the time I end up keeping them around there, sticking them somewhere and put them on another truck, headed back to the same place later on. And they're fine with it. It's okay by then. It wasn't a serious thing, but they're not going to take the risk of it because that's not what they ordered. They didn't order lame calves.
Correct.
They ordered 100%,
healthy,
100% sound cattle. So, and it's okay. It's just part of the cost of doing business.
Yeah. So you're kind of a contractor.
Yes, I'm basically an independent guy. I don't get a W-2 from them at all.
They pay you.
They pay me commission on what I buy. If I don't buy them, I don't get paid.
So you better be in that sale yard.
You've got to be there, and hopefully their bid is good enough because they tell me what they want and what they're going to pay for that order. So there's times I could buy them cattle, but it's not what they want.
But so you got to get what they want at the price they say, period. So basically, you're like my buddy that goes to an auction for me to buy something. I give him a price, and he either gets it or he doesn't.
Yeah. And that's the way that particular deal works. Now, there are other deals. I have other people that tell me that this is kind of where I want to be on them, price-wise.
Yeah.
But I need them.
Yeah.
And if they're the right kind, if they're sure enough,
yeah, I'm willing to go X.
then get them bought.
Yeah.
You know, there's a different kinds of orders on those types of things.
So, do you buy for more than just that one place in Nebraska?
That's my basic. That's my big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that's my everyday.
That's
deal.
the bread and butter.
That's the one that buys the milk and bread.
Yeah.
But I can take an order from anybody. I'm an independent guy.
So I could tell you, I
can-
want 100 head of.
I don't think they'll fit in
Black.
your backyard, but I'll send them to you. You'll have to worry about getting them unloaded when they get here.
Yeah, amen. We'll just let them roam.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the neighborhood has plenty of
As long as
grass.
your check's good, buddy, we'll send them to you.
The check would be good
Yeah.
until it bounced.
Right. Yeah. Don't drop it.
Just don't drop it. He'll come back up at you. So I didn't realize how number one diverse your thing is. And let me explain what an entrepreneur does a little bit. An entrepreneur,
And I'm not saying my interpretation was right. That
Yes.
was just always been the true
Mindset.
sense.
Yeah.
The true sense of an entrepreneur was kind of someone that really did it on their own. That really came up with the idea. That really came up, whether it's an old idea or a new idea.
Yeah.
They really kind of came up with.
they
how they
refined
said
an idea and made it better.
Yeah, and really kind of came up. I kind of took the reins from my dad.
Yeah. So with your purchasing business, where you're purchasing cattle, that would definitely be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a person this is the way I see an entrepreneur. A person that is willing to put his neck out to create an opportunity for him or his family. And in a fashion in which a lot of other people wouldn't, because of the level of work necessary.
Sure.
So that could be from an inventor, from a person providing a service. So that's what you do. You provide a service. To a person that's developing things. There's all kinds of entrepreneurs out there. And you do definitely fall into the entrepreneur scope.
Sure.
With and I've talked to you enough. You can't say you didn't invent something, right?
Well,
you created a rub,
Right, but I don't know that I really. I mean, there's all kinds of rubs out there. So
yes. Well, you created a rub, and you reached out to us and said, "Could you make it better?" And
you did.
by every account, we did. So so that is a full circle thing, because very few of us in life can do 100% of the things we want to do by ourselves.
Right, and I would say that my buying gig, as I call it, it's 100% mine.
Yes.
It's something that I did. Now, I can't say it was my idea necessarily, because my dad.
But you pushed for
that
it.
was one. That was my dad's. It was kind of one of his thoughts of what he wanted to do when he came back from Vietnam, was being a cattle buyer, and ended up kind of going a different direction. But it was one of those things that he had thought about.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we got onto the rub. So I guess we're getting ready to go to a different direction here.
Yes, we are.
Because you're ready to talk about food.
Nope. I'm
No?
just trying to break that conversation to go into the next one.
Right.
So, two things I ask. Every person that I know hunts, fish, outdoorsy guy, outdoorsy person, outdoorsy, doesn't matter. Funniest hunting, fishing story, and most memorable. You can tell whichever one you want. And see, the thing is, I see surprise in your face, and you've listened to several podcasts.
I know. Yeah, I know. Because I wasn't really expecting that. I wasn't expecting to go this direction. I thought we were going to go on food. So, yeah, most memorable hunting.
Or fishing, doesn't matter.
Or fishing. But it's so hard because hunting with my kids, their first hunts,
Yes.
some of those things are great. I mean, those were probably, I will never forget one of the first time Buster, my oldest boy, went hunting with me, and we went deer hunting. We were in a tree stand. It was kind of cold, and we had these does everywhere. Now, I am not opposed to shooting a doe, and I am not going to get into the big rack,
No.
whatever you want to shoot
Shoot it.
with deer. I mean, we've got such a good deer population and a good, follow the game laws. Don't shoot what you're not supposed to shoot.
Amen.
But, we have plenty of deer to be able to shoot anything that's legal.
Yes.
So if you're happy, I'm happy. But I like to shoot big bucks or got an inappropriate joke about this and I won't say it. But anyway.
Depends how inappropriate.
It's pretty inappropriate.
Okay.
So anyway, but I have a freezer full of beef at my house, and I prefer beef over deer. Not that I dislike deer meat, venison. I've ate plenty of it and will eat it again.
Yes.
But I don't go deer hunting. Not that I don't use the meat, but I don't go deer hunting for the meat. And so we were sitting there, and I said, if we see a big buck, we'll shoot it. If not, we're just going to watch deer, because it's one of my favorite things. It's one of the favorite things about hunting is watching animal behavior.
Yes.
It's so – I've seen them rear up and,
fight.
And, one of the funniest things was probably I've ever seen was the little old spike buck was pestering a doe. And she was probably getting ready to come in, but wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And he kept sniffing around, and finally she just whipped around and stood up on her hind legs and just pawed the crap out of his head. It looked like me in college,
Yeah. Hey, honey, no, wop.
I'd got that reaction quite a bit in my life. So.
You probably get that reaction to this day occasionally.
Yeah. Start sniffing around, you get pawed in the head.
Fried pan across the forehead. Dong.
Sniff on that, buddy. But anyway, but so we were there, and we were just surrounded by these does, and there was little bucks and stuff just everywhere. We were over a clover food plot and having a grand time. But he was like, he wanted to hunt and he wanted to be successful in his hunt.
Yes.
So he was his amount of success at that time was to have something on the ground.
Yes.
And so he was just with me. He wasn't carrying a gun or anything, but he wanted me to shoot one. He said, "Dad, just shoot one, get it over with." And I was like, "No, I told you what we were hunting for, and if we don't find that thing, we're not gonna shoot it." And there was some old long-faced doe over here snorting, and there was one on this side of us snorting. And finally, I said, "You know what? We're not gonna with all these things snorting and carrying on." I said, "We're not gonna get the big buck." I said, "Let's just go to the house. It's getting pretty dark anyway." So we get down out of the stand, we're walking. He says, "This is why I like bear hunting." And this boy's never been hunting in his life. But he says, "This is why I like bear hunting." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And he says, "Well, when you're bear hunting, you just walk around. When one of them comes after you, you just shoot it."
And he'd never gone bear hunting in his life.
Been hunting anything.
He just said something.
Yeah, that was his interpretation of bear hunting. So that was pretty memorable. Reed's my middle boy's first turkey hunt. When he was hunting, it seems like whenever youth season comes around, it's a nightmare of getting things done. And I can't remember what we had done the night before, but we had got in late and got up the next morning, and it was late. And I think it was 8 or 9 o'clock, and we hadn't even printed tags off. This was before the app. You still had to have a tag. So at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, we're printing off tags. And
so, in clarification, in Missouri, when can you start hunting turkey?
Daylight, or 30 minutes before daylight is legal. shooting time. And so, by 9 o'clock, we finally find enough camouflage that halfway fits him, and off we go, and we drive around the section and get out. And it's early season, it's youth season, so it's early season, so a big flock of decoys is kind of the typical thing that you'd want. A lot of the turkeys are still flocked up and whatnot. So I take, I don't know, I had 4 or 5 decoys, mostly hens, and then 1 Jake decoy. And I had a brand new set. It was called a Flock in a Bag, and it was something from Bass Pro.
Yeah.
They're pretty decent enough decoys. They weren't real high end. They weren't Dakotas or anything like that, but they were decent enough, and
they got the job done.
Pretty good looking decoys, and so I had that and some other older decoys, and anyway, I set the whole array up and get them all set out and everything, and we get in a blind and sit in our chairs, and I'm kind of digging out some stuff, and I get out my slate call, and hit it. It's about the loudest one I've got. And I hit it real good and loud, just to kind of try to settle things down a little bit, to kind of try to make it feel like we left. Yeah. And the turkeys were out there yelping. And I'm digging around on my vest and kind of setting things. We got a little shelf in the blind, and so I was kind of trying to set things out so I didn't have to rustle around so much. And about that time I look up, and here comes one. Here comes a big old tom. Full strut, all the way to the decoy setup. I mean, it probably took us 15 minutes to set this array of decoys out. And this thing, he comes right, struts all the way. Of course, I'd really instructed him as that we don't shoot them when they're in strut, because they'll get more pellets in their breast that way. We want them to have their neck extended.
Yeah, you want them to gobble.
So you can get the shot pattern up above their breast. And so he was on him the whole time. I thought, man, he's going to get nervous and miss. And anyway, he gets up there and just struts all the way to the Jake decoy, and then just clobbers the crap out of him. and there's this cone. There's a peg that goes in the ground. That holds it up, yeah. And it goes up into this cone. Well, it busted that cone, and the Jake decoy's hanging there upside down, feet straight up in the air. And he goes out of strut, and I said, now, but before I could get out, boom, and he just dropped, and there wasn't any flopping, nothing. It was just over with. It took us longer to get the decoys set up than it did to call a bird.
Harvest the bird.
And this is his first hunt, and to tell you the truth, I think every kid on their first hunt needs to be unsuccessful.
Yes, because they set too high of expectations for every hunt after that.
So now his very first hunt is it takes
15 minutes.
It takes 15, 20 minutes to set the decoys and about 37 seconds to call in the bird.
He couldn't have been more lucky.
No.
Right.
So he had this great big. So that was really memorable. Probably the most memorable hunt that I ever did on my own or without my boys was Alaska. And I went with a good friend of mine named Ray Panawazik, Hurdle Creek Outfitters. Shameless plug there for Ray. Hurdle is Hurtle.
So Hurdle Creek Outfitters, and that's in Alaska.
In Alaska, Wasilla, Alaska is where he's based out of. Good friend of mine, great guy. Can't say if he was here, we would have to have two or more bottles of bourbon. we could get round up telling stories.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he wanted me to come hunt with him. And I said, Ray, I can't afford. He said, come, we'll figure something out. And so I saved up the money that I needed to have, and went up there, and I said, let's do something a little different. I said, have you ever walked in? Is there any place that we could walk in to hunt? And I'm thinking walking in for hiking a half a day and hunting somewhere, maybe it's not the best hunting area, but
yeah.
So I had drawn a moose tag, but in Alaska, you can buy. So, but what I did is I bought a grizzly bear tag, because the grizzly bear tag was higher than the moose tag, so you can tag down. as long as it's legal and you're in the hunting,
Yeah.
you're in the right area. So we could basically, I could have either or, moose or a bear. And he said, yeah. He says, I know what. He says, I got it figured out. He says, I know exactly where we can go. We walked in, carried everything that we needed on our backs for a 10-day hunt. We walked in 50 miles.
That ain't half a day, brother.
That's not half a day. 2 miles from the highway.
Oh.
So we walked in and we walked right underneath the Alaska pipeline. Right underneath.
Oh,
it.
really?
I've got pictures of me with my pack, standing underneath the Alaska pipeline. And anyway, it took us 4 days to get in, and we basically camped on a remote airstrip.
Oh.
So when we got there, he had stashed a tent. So when we got there, we had a big tent. But the weather was so perfect the whole time we were out there. We never pitched the tent on our hike.
Oh, really?
We never pitched the tent. We slept in our
Under the stars?
Under the stars. One night, a place, Horse Pass, is what he called it. That camp was wide open, kind of an open glade. And the northern lights just went wild that night. They were so bright they woke me up. They'd wake me up. And I'd
really?
look up, and it was just unbelievable. So we spent 10 days out there, and it was, I think, what was it? It was like day and a half of hiking, and there was no sign of humans.
Wow.
There was 4-wheeler tracks for a day and a half. And after a day and a half, we never saw another sign of a human until we got to that airstrip.
And you had 4 days of hiking.
4 days of hiking.
Wow.
And so, when we got within 35 yards of a legal moose, but we passed on it and was looking for a more mature moose. And actually, I really wanted to. There was a grizzly in the area. We saw his sign. We saw his tracks on top of ours from the day before. So we knew he was in the area. And
Hold on. Stop. Let's take this back just about 15 seconds.
Right.
So you saw grizzly bear tracks on top of your tracks.
Yes.
So now you are not hunting the bear. The bear is now hunting you.
Like Buster said, you just walk around till they come after you and you shoot them.
I'm not sure
easy,
a grizzly
easy
is something
peasy.
you want to play with
Easy
like that.
peasy. But no, I don't think he was stalking us. I think he was just checking us out because he was not. He was never seen. We never heard him. I think it was kind of in the middle of the night, and he was kind of checking things out. But it was so remote. Where we were at was so remote. I think he
didn't think anything of it.
He was just like, all these people, they'll leave in a couple days,
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, you're sitting out, you're in the middle of the night,
it was
you're
fall.
sleeping.
He was more worried about eating berries and stuff than there was.
Well, you're a food source.
I was, but yeah. Probably be a pretty tasty one too. Probably pretty easy to kill. I would never even pull the trigger. I'd been crapping down both legs.
Yeah, I could just see you sitting there sleeping under the stars in your skivvies.
Yeah.
And a grizzly bear come by and just take a chomp.
Yeah, just go.
Yeah.
With it. Yeah. To guarantee it, this weight, he would have had a couple days eating probably.
Well, he could tenderize you up.
Yeah.
Some.
He would have had to wait for Ray to tenderize a little bit. He's about like an old boot sole,
Eat on you while the other one rots.
The other rots and
Yeah.
gets soft. But
Sorry.
That's exactly the way you have to think about it, But we saw where it bedded, because we never did sit, so we don't know if it was a sow or a boar, but we assumed it was a boar just from the size of the tracks and the.
So pretty big.
The way it would have been a fair sized bear.
Yeah.
It would have been sure enough something to bring home and be
Yeah.
proud of. I don't think it would have been world record or anything. That area is not known for the big record bears, but it would have been a decent bear.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted. If I go back again, if I ever go to Alaska again, we're going to do a straight up bear hunt and we're going to get it done. This one was about the adventure. I wanted to see that country the way the first people saw it, and I wanted to see it that way for the first time.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So we walked in, and
Did you guys walk out or did you fly out?
We flew out, yeah. We walked in. That took up 4 days of our 10.
Yeah.
So we only had 6 days to hunt. And that's probably one reason we kind of passed on that moose too, because he kind of kept thinking it was like a day 2. So he was thinking 8 more days when we only had 3 more days. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but then, so that was a pretty big. We saw a wolf the first night that we got there, big black wolf, and
Kind of spooky or
oh,
just
it was
kind of
cool.
awesome?
No, it was just awesome. Yeah, there's a thing about being in the wilderness, and I experienced it probably for the first time when I was between my junior and senior year of high school when I went to Vail.
Yeah.
And we were backed up right up in the Eagles Nest Wilderness there. And so on our day off, we were free to take a horse and go riding. And so I was just, went.
Yeah.
And I got up there, and it struck me. I'm on my own.
Yeah.
It's up to me to make it home. This horse trips, this horse decides to throw me off, whatever the case may be, it's up to me to get home. And there is a fear element that I experienced right then that I crave. And every once in a while, I just have to find it again.
Yeah.
And whether that's through business,
Yeah.
biting off more than you can chew.
Oh, yeah. And like, how am I going to get through this? Yeah.
And so, you kind of, and so it's a little bit of a junkie in that. I never was like I always wanted to be a bronc rider, but I knew I wasn't good enough at it. I spent too much time trying to talk them things out of bucking instead of riding them, because I knew I could never ride them. I was just like, I am just like Ty Murray, except I can't ride a bucking horse. So that it's I just wasn't that way, but I found other ways to find that fear and get that, and I do, and you do, and I think a person can get themselves in a mess just so they can
find a way out.
Get their fear.
Yeah.
Get their fear fix.
I can.
And I was craving that. I was really craving it. I hadn't had it in a long time. When I took that Alaska trip, I hadn't had that in a long time. And I told Ray, and he knew what I was talking about, because one of his stories is, and I probably won't get it right, but it's close enough. When his first job in Alaska, he was working for another outfitter. He was young. He had some construction experience, and he let that slip. Well, if he hadn't let it slip, he never would have got hired. And so they took him out there. They flew him out to some remote place, and they said, well, there's some material here. There's some more materials on the plane. We need a cabin over there. They threw out the rest of the equipment and tools, and then there was some already there. They said, we need a cabin over there, and flew off. And they said, we'll be back in a week with more materials. And there he is by himself. And so he knew that fear. And fear is probably not the right word. It's a feeling.
Intimidation.
It's a feeling that knows that you have to step up the game.
Yep.
It's up to you. You got to get it done.
That is something that I truly believe. And that is truly what I believe every entrepreneur is doing.
Probably so.
Because I'll be honest. So our outfitting business is at a level in which we either need to, the only way I know how to put it, shit or get off the pot.
Mm-hmm.
We are growing fast, and we have the opportunity to expand our growth pretty quickly. And it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible scary, because we're looking at lots of dollars. Lots and lots and lots of dollars to expand to where we need to be to accommodate our hunters and to accommodate the hunters to the level that we expect to be able to accommodate our hunters to. So there's that fear that drives you to do that task.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has it. There's people that when that fear kicks in, they're like, nope, not doing it. Where a real entrepreneur like myself, and I'm going to say like you, are willing to go, you know what? I've been in worse shape.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen? I can die, and I don't have to worry about it at that point anymore.
So it's a bank's problem. After
yeah,
that.
that's a bank's problem after that. So you just find a way to push through it.
Yeah, and I think it's the easiest thing to explain. And I've always kind of liked that, being able to just go for something and do something. And I kind of lost it at one point. You could call it a midlife crisis, or whatever you want to call it. But a few years ago, there was a spot there that kind of got in a bad spot, and I kind of thought to myself one day, I've lost my mojo. I didn't want to do anything, and it was kind of at the tail end of that when I went to Alaska, and I just kind of just craved that.
You wanted more.
I wanted that. I wanted to get that mojo back, and I thought, okay, the first time I got it, I was in the wilderness.
Yep.
I'm going to go back to that spot, get it back, and then I'll be able to go again.
Yeah.
And I did, and it since that point, and so now, I'm kind of at a spot now where I'm kind of ready to look out, because
here I come,
and I'm and I'm liable to try something that I hear pretty
Your
quick.
Wife, Alyssa's back there going, no. She's like, no, I can't see her right at the moment.
But that's the great thing about my wife is that she's my greatest cheerleader, and and so I think that she likes me better when I've got that, because
you're a better person.
I was that way when she met me, and so if she didn't like me that way, then she kind of screwed up 26 years ago.
my poor wife. She's
probably not going to change at this point.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little funny. So when I first met my wife, we were at a bar. We met. Blah blah blah. So I'm giving her a ride home. This is the first night, right? Just giving her a ride home, and I'm telling her, I just won't stop talking, right? And she looks at me and goes, "Do you ever stop talking?" I was like, "It's the only way for you to get to know me." And you know what? I don't think my mouth stopped since.
It's good, because when she says something, you better perk your ears, because it's.
I'll tell you what.
She's going to say it once and it means something.
Yeah, there's a lot to that.
You can kind of.
Yep.
Blur out on you for a few seconds and.
Yeah.
Come right back to where you were at.
Yeah. When she speaks, you better listen. There might be another frying pan coming my way. So you've covered some of your most memorable opportunities and experiences. I know you have to have that funniest experience. The reason I don't tell anybody about these is because I want you to be it. What pops right up, right?
The pop deal. There was a lot of water in that.
Oh yeah.
Here, let me drain some of the water off. So funny. I don't know.
There's got to be something.
There's. I guess I don't know. I've always been able to look at anything, but smells always get me. So to this day, I can't gut a deer without gagging. There's something about
really?
There's something about a hot gut.
Just don't pop it.
No. Even without popping the gut, I mean, I can get them out, and I'm pretty good at it, because I know if I pop it, it's gonna be beyond gagging. But even doing pheasants. That was one of the reasons that when I did quail when I was a kid.
Yeah.
This guy showed me. He said, you pull all the feathers and the skin off of them, and you put your finger,
and you just rip the breast
and
out.
you just rip the breast off. And he says, you just pull it off, and he says, your arm's already going that way. You just toss it out there, and then you don't have to
You don't have to deal with it.
You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to smell it. Because like I said, I can look at anything, but whenever you deal with livestock or animals of any sort, sooner or later you're going to have a dead one.
Yes.
And
that smell.
Yes. And that smell is, and then of course, they'll die somewhere you don't want them to be dead at.
Yes.
And you have to go deal with it. It's the middle of the summer, and they start thinking within an hour or two.
Yes.
But I was reading a deal on the internet that said that policemen and coroners and the people that deal with dead bodies that are in some state of decay will use mentholatum, and they'll put mentholatum in their nose or menthol or something, and they'll put. And I remember I had this calf died right up against the road where you don't want everybody going by there, and so I had to move it, and I knew it was going to be bad, and I had so much mentholatum sticking out of it looked like I had. I mean, if someone had come out to the coronavirus, they'd have thought and of course it was hot, and I was sweating, and it was dripping down my mouth, and but I didn't gag. I could smell that. I could smell mentholatum for days.
I can see you do that.
Yeah. One time we were gathering cows for a buddy of mine, we kind of neighbor, and helped back and forth, and he knew I was that way about smells, and he knew there was a dead cow over in an area, and he sent me on that circle, so I had to go right by it. And of course, the earlier in the day it is, I mean, the worse it is, and so this is first thing in the morning, and I was riding by that cow, and I come back. He's making fun of me. It's just,
just guys, big guys.
Whatever, and I've kind of got to the point where I don't care. I used to be embarrassed of it, but it's just who I am. So if you don't like it, well, I guess you can find someplace else to be.
Amen.
Find a new friend.
I will say this: when you're on hunts, when you book a hunt, you are historically the last person up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the group's like, well, why don't we just go without Wes? I was like, Wes is the one that set this up. We're not going nowhere until he's up. And we ain't going to wake him.
I kind of count on it. But no, I have always, I think we're all built a little bit different way. And I have always wanted to be one of those guys that could go to bed at 2 in the morning and wake up at 5, and be ready to go. And I've just never been that way. I've always had a terrible time going to sleep. I can't get to sleep, and then once I get to sleep, I can't get up. And I I have to stay if I'm going to be like when I was backgrounding and when I was working on the ranch.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle I picked did not pick my. I need to be a 3 to 11 factory worker because that's when I'm awake. And anyway, so I had a strict schedule. I had to be, at if I stayed up to watch the weather, it was late.
Yeah.
I had to be. Somewhere. We would be watching TV at about 9:45. I'd go brush my teeth and everything, and I was in the bed, lights off, eyes closed at 10 o'clock, so I could get
to sleep.
And in time, and then be able to get up in the morning. And it doesn't matter. I could go to bed at 7 o'clock, and I would have to kick myself out of bed in the morning. It's just it's a struggle. And so when I'm hunting, especially bird hunting at your place, you bet I'm gonna sleep in.
Oh yeah, you're gonna
wait on them. They'll be all right.
Oh yeah,
those birds. You know what? I bet you those birds are still there.
Yeah, because we haven't put them out yet. Matter of fact, when we do your hunt, we do not put birds out until Wes is up.
Yeah, there you go.
Because we know we have an hour from the time you get up till the time you eat until the time you're ready to leave.
And forever, when I got up in the morning, I had kicked myself out of bed. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, brushed my teeth, combed my hair, threw my clothes on as fast. I was out the door in 10 minutes.
Yeah. I've been there.
with a cup of coffee, with a go cup of coffee, and that's how I went, and that's how I could operate. That's, I was always kind of queasy in the morning anyway. And so you definitely didn't want any smells. Coffee was the only smell I wanted in the morning, and I would take that coffee and go.
And now think about this. Hold on. I used to do this when I was young too. You jump up, quick shower, dress, boom, boom, and you're out of the house in 10, 15, maximum 30 minutes.
Yep.
You're on the road. Now, today.
It
don't work that way, does it?
No, I can still do it, and I probably still function the best if I do that. Because if I sit around the house too much in the morning, I get that morning queasy stomach deal, and I just, and it's been that way since I was a kid, and so I cannot function without being outside. I have to be outside. That way, if I gag and
you can just take care of it there.
I can just gag and go on.
See, that's the difference with me. I have tried to do that jump up and go and get out of the house. I just can't do it anymore.
Probably the next time we hunt, I probably need to get me a thermos for coffee, and
I could just have you a cup of coffee next to your bed when you wake up.
Just have a cup of coffee on the counter. When I come out, I'll just grab a cup of coffee
and we'll walk out the door.
We'll just go. Don't worry about my breakfast anymore.
Just go.
I'll eat when we get back.
But the good thing is honestly, you never make us late, right? Because there's no time frame, right. And that's the biggest thing about the way we do things is it's based on your time frame.
Well, and the other thing is if you gave me a time frame, I probably would still be the last one up.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be up about 10 minutes before I needed to be out the door. And I would say, don't worry about my breakfast, you know?
And instead, we try to make it a real enjoyable experience. So we talked a little bit. So I'm changing directions again.
Go ahead.
Because that's what I do. We touched on camo a little bit earlier in the podcast, and I know you're extremely vested in that organization. So I told everybody basically what camo is and basically what they do. But what I didn't touch on is the impact they have. So I know that there have been veterans that this camo organization has, in some cases, actually saved their lives.
Sure.
Could you give me...
Do you want me to start from the very, how I got involved with it from my perspective? Because I know you want to touch on this on a future one.
Yeah, I do.
With somebody else.
Yeah, but
that really did.
What we say here won't affect that.
Right. Okay. So, I'll just first of all, I'm going to start out with how I got involved with it.
That sounds good.
Worked, and then whenever you want me to get redirected, just point which direction you want me to go.
I will.
So, at one point there, we had the opportunity to buy some land that adjoined to what we already owned.
Yeah.
And that land had a house on it. And while we could afford the land, while the land made sense, the house didn't. We didn't need a house.
Yeah.
At that point. And so we couldn't really, and of course, a house adds value to land.
Yeah.
So we couldn't pay for the house.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, couldn't pay for the house. So what we decided to do was we separated the house in 40 acres. We put it on a separate note.
Yeah.
And then the land was, so our original plan was we were going to sell the house in 40 acres or the house in 20 acres, whatever we could get enough to make it work. And about that time, the hunting leases had really gotten to be a big thing.
Yeah.
So I told my parents, I said, before we sell it, because when you sell land, especially in that type of situation where you're selling 40 acres against an actual production agriculture,
creates issues.
It creates issues. Someone's going to have...
You could get a Karen.
Yeah, you're right. Or you're going to get someone with 87 goats and 120 Great Pyrenees dogs. And nothing against people that want to move to the country and have a little homestead and everything else, it just causes issues. And so I said, before we do that, I said, give me a couple months here. Let's see about a hunting lease. See if we can lease the hunting rights to our place, and with the house, with full access to the house. And so then they would have a cabin, and they would have all the hunting rights. And anyway, I knew what the payment was for what we needed to make the payment on the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked into hunting lease amounts and whatnot for what it was, I knew it wasn't the most ideal hunting lease in the world. Southwest Missouri doesn't offer the biggest deer, where there are no row crops right where we're at, blah, blah, blah. But fair market value, it was almost perfect.
Yeah.
So I put it out on that was just back before Facebook, before MySpace, but there were some internet forums.
Oh, yeah.
And so I put it out on the classified section of some hunting forums.
Like Craigslist or something like that.
Yeah, well, they were, it was Accurate Reloading and 24-Hour Campfire.
Yeah.
And I put it on both of them. And I can't remember which one it was now, but a guy contacted me. Well, I had several contacts, tire kickers, whatnot.
Yeah.
But finally, a guy from Kansas City contacted me, and he actually wanted to come down and look at it. So he came down, and we met, and he was a little bit older than me, but my age bracket, and they had kids the same age, almost basically the same age as my kids and our kids, and so it seemed like a great fit. He had a group of guys that wanted to go together and do this hunting lease. So they ended up doing it. They ended up taking it, and about a couple years in, he called me and said, hey, I've been taking some veterans hunting at my house, and I'd kind of like to bring them down this year to the farm. That's what they always called it, the farm.
Yeah.
And I said, let's bring them down there. He says, is that going to be okay with you? And I said, well, yeah. Why wouldn't it?
It's your lease.
It's your deal. You know, I mean, you guys are. And he says, well, it's just going to be a little bit more people than what we, it's going to add more people to the deal. I said, no. I says, no problem. Whatever. Let me know what I can do to help.
Yeah.
So this was literally just guys going hunting. And so we did the first one there, or we did that one there. I was involved. I got a couple neighbors to help guide these guys, and it was like the Wild West. They're always a blast. Veterans are a blast to be around. Those guys are they're just kind of my tribe, know, for the most part. And anyway, we had a great time, and within a year we had, and I shouldn't say I was involved, but at that time I wasn't involved because I was still a lease deal. Anyway, long story short, that has evolved into from me leasing the hunting rights to this group of guys, and they were bringing the veterans to a 501c3 organization that I do not lease the hunting rights to anybody anymore. I donate the hunting rights and the house to Camo. I also sit on the board of directors for Camo, the 501c3 organization, and we bring veterans hunting. We do a turkey hunt, a deer hunt, and a fishing trip every year. Now we've added a pheasant quail hunt. We also do 2 scholarships. KU. Let me get it right, because all this, we're over here in the. Well, anyway, we're over here in Kansas. And I can't ever remember. I can't ever keep them separate. But anyway, the Jayhawks. Yeah, KU. So we do a KU scholarship, and we do one of the guys that sits on the board is actually the vice president. Is connected with KU.
Yes.
And I think he's a KU graduate.
Yep.
And so do KU, and then we do UMKC, which I believe also his son attended. So that's kind of, so we do, and it's camo, which is Kansas and Missouri.
Yep.
Not Missouri. There's no A on the end.
Missouri.
Missouri. Sound like a Yankee.
I am a Yankee.
So anyway, I guess that's not politically correct.
Who cares?
Definition anymore.
At this point, we don't care, do we?
So anyway, there's a. So we take this guy's hunting, and when we first started it out, it was like we wanted to make this big deal about him, and we didn't know what we were doing. We really did not know what we were doing. We did not know the impact that we could actually have by doing this.
So, right here. This is, I'll be honest. My first opportunity to experience what you guys do was your banquet up at
Boulevard
Brewery in Kansas City.
Yes.
That was my first experience going. I told you guys I'd donate, blah, blah, blah. So I go up. I'm listening to the stories, right? I'm talking to some people. I'm getting to understand the impact that you guys are having. I'll be honest, it brought tears to me. What I would like you to share, just I'm hoping, because we've never talked about this. I'm hoping you have that veteran that you guided or you spent time with, that it truly made a real big impact for that veteran in some way.
And see, there was a.
And obviously,
I'm going to kind of use in generalities here.
Yes,
because,
generalities is what I want.
Not necessarily for their privacy, but because I think it'll work better. I think people will understand it better when I talk in generalities.
Yes,
than it will be when I'm talking about an individual. Other than I'll talk about one.
Just don't give names.
He's a jackleg.
Jackleg.
And his name is Mike Hall.
Mike Hall. So you're nailing him.
I'm nailing him. But no, but he's a great friend, and we met on a hunt. He came and I guided him on a turkey hunt, and we met, and he made a big impact. He's made as big of an impact in my life as I've made in his, if I've made one at all, in his. But because he helped me understand my dad. My dad is a Vietnam veteran, and there were so many things about that part of him that I didn't understand. And being friends with someone my own age, someone that I could really relate to, someone that would open up to me and tell me
the pains and struggles.
Because his dad's a Vietnam veteran, and his dad and my dad are so much alike. So we could share stories as sons, complaining about our dads, and then he got to explain to me why my dad was that way, and he get to say that he still complains about his dad, even though he totally understands it because he's been there, he's experienced it. I haven't experienced it, but he was able to. So anyway, back to the deal. We were really just trying to say us, the guys involved, the guys that originally had that hunting lease, myself. We were just trying to say thank you. We were trying to. Joe Cushman is on the board. He's a veteran. He was an Air Force veteran. But other than him, none of us are veterans.
Yeah.
And so we just, we kind of thought this is our way of serving our country.
Yeah, in a roundabout way.
Kind
of like what is that? The group that goes out and gives them shows. The
USO.
USO. That's it.
Yeah. So this is our way of being able to do that. We didn't go. We didn't serve, but by golly, we can serve those who served.
Amen.
So, and we were going to do that in a way by taking them, hunt them, and then trying to honor them with newspaper articles and etc. Well, we soon discovered that they didn't want that. That hoopla.
No, they could care less.
No, they didn't want that.
No.
What they wanted was just guys going hunting.
Yeah.
And we had one veteran that came, and he had been on Outdoor Channel on an elk hunt, New Mexico elk hunt, and like trophy elk country. I mean, like the whole 9 yards. And filmed, put on the Outdoor Channel. And I thought, man, awesome. Wouldn't that be great? Let's do that here. And he goes, no. He says, don't change this. Make it like this. He says, this is the best hunt I've ever been on. He says, I've been on a lot of these veteran hunts. This is the best one I've been on because it's just guys going hunting. It
That's good
just
to know.
feels like I'm at my hunting camp
Yep.
with my guys. And there's always a time, it doesn't matter, every single hunt, every single fishing trip, there always comes at least one time where those guys get engaged. They've never met each other before, but they've
Yeah.
been in the same places, they've seen the same things, and they'll get engaged and they'll get to talking, and we all just kind of fade to the background. And it's their time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a great connection with each other, and I wish I could remember. We've gotten thank you emails and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to toot our horn. I'm trying to toot our horn because we need support. We know
Amen.
everything.
Yep.
But I'm not trying to toot my horn or anything like that on this deal because we don't do anything. This is nothing compared to what those guys have went through, what those guys did, what they were willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
I mean, what am I sacrificing?
What's a weekend compared to a life?
Right, and I'm having a great time too. Yeah. So, I'm sacrificing my weekend by going and hanging out and hunting.
Yeah, that's not much of a sacrifice,
Right,
is it?
right.
Yeah.
And so, and there's deer everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm not sacrificing anything by
No.
doing this. It's ridiculous to say that I'm doing anything, or any of us are doing anything, compared to what those guys did.
Well, hold on. I'm going to. Personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, you and I aren't doing squat, right? In the big picture of sacrifice,
Sure.
right? But there is something we are doing. This is the point that people need to understand about what Camo Adventures is actually about. So we're 22 a day. 22 a day.
That's right. Yep. And those guys take it hard when someone they know pulls the trigger. And it's a big thing. And so again, even years into it, even after we discovered what they really needed, we didn't understand why. But there is something about those guys being able to connect. And my buddy Ray Panawazik from Alaska, we talked about this a lot. He came down and has helped on some hunts and guided turkey and deer, which was awesome because we could tell him, you're getting to go with the Alaskan guide, And but he said he brought something up, and he said, let's talk about, because him and I are both great dreamers about the old North Woods deer camp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The with all the
Yes.
with the wool and the
Yes.
the whole 9 yards. So we love that era and that time. And we got to talking about that one time, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "You think about this." He said, "Most of those guys, the height of that hunt, the North Woods, the old, what we all think about the North Woods hunt, was post World War II.
Yeah.
Most of those guys were World War II veterans, and they got together with their Army buddies, went and built a camp, and they went hunt, and it was their
stress.
It was their thing. It was their thing. And if you look at those camps, and there's a great YouTube video. if you look it up, I can't remember what words to use to look it up, but it talks about one of those old Northwoods camps in Michigan. And those guys were World War II veterans. And in those days, those guys went up there. They left the wife and the kids at home and went up there. And I bet you every one of them loved their wife and kids to death. But there was something about them getting together with the guys. And we've had women hunts. In fact, our deer hunt this year is going to be all female veterans hunts.
Oh, good.
And so, but there's something about that connection for veterans in that setting that rejuvenates them.
Yeah. Well, think about it. You know, my uncle served 6 tours in Vietnam, if I remember correctly. And he, funniest, fantastic guy, set me down a road with Canadian Mist that to this day my wife doesn't let me drink Canadian Mist.
It would probably come after the Clover. Probably.
Yeah. Well.
I'm a Canadian guy. I'm a Canadian whiskey guy.
Well, Canadian Mist is Canadian Mist brings out my let's just say manhood. So my uncle, I'll give a quick story. So we would have literally like a 32-ounce cup he would give us. He would put ice in it. I'm not going to tell you how old I was because it was illegal, but I can guarantee you I wasn't over the age of 16. He would give us a cup, 32-ounce-ish, half full of ice, give us a can of pop, 1 can of Pepsi, and the bottle of Canadian Mist, and say, if you use that can of Pepsi on one drink, you're abusing the pop. So basically, that can of Pepsi had to last you 2 drinks. Otherwise, he wasn't giving you another can of Pepsi. And you had to have at least 2 drinks with him. So that's that. But so he got us out on a boat. He lived on a creek. And so, and he owned a boat, and we got out on the creek, and he was letting my older brother drive the boat. I was probably 12. He's letting my older brother drive the boat. He was probably 15. And something happened, don't know what, but my brother panicked, turned the thing, and we drove into this tree that there were just branches everywhere. It had to be in the fall because there was no leaves on it. But there were branches everywhere. There was no way you'd get away from a branch. I got hit by a branch, thrown in the back seat, everything else. Everybody was wiped out in that boat but my uncle. He broke every branch that came towards him. And he was completely obliterated when it happened. So the reason I say this, and the only reason I bring it up, is he was trying to cope with the problems that he faced through being in the military for 6 tours in Vietnam through the bottle, where you and I have the opportunity to sit here, have a couple drinks, relax, chit-chat, have a conversation. He was using that as a medicine, as a tool to fix himself. Back in the day when they went to the northern deer camp, their medicine to fix themselves was once a year when they got to go to deer camp. And so what you're creating for these people that need it, not necessarily want it, they need it.
And it's not about the hunting.
No. It has probably 5% hunting.
You know, and it depends on the guy. You know, we've had people that have never hunted before, and we outfitted them completely. I mean, there was some of those early guys. We were outfitting. I mean, we bought them clothes.
Yeah.
We took them to Bass Pro on the way down. Over the years, I have gotten a little bit. I've gotten the loaner stuff at the hunting house. We've got the hunting cabin. There's overalls stuff. There's always somebody that forgets something, and so we try to have some good gear for them there. And so there's ones that don't own guns, that don't own firearms.
Yep.
And they come and borrow a gun. We set them up. We get them accustomed to the gun. We shoot before we go out. So, and then we have we've had the guys that are there. I mean, they've got all the gear and they've got the whole 9 yards, and they're there to hunt.
Yeah.
And I think they get as much out of it, and then they and we tell them from the very beginning. I mean, this is what Stephen Johnson started when he was doing it at his house. He said, "This is your hunt. You can do whatever you want to. If you want to sleep in till noon and watch Oprah till 5 and go back to bed,
yeah, it's your day.
It's your day. Whatever you want to do." And so we've got those guys that are serious, and we kind of try to read them when they first come in, try to figure out who they need to be with, where they need to go. So we are setting them guys up for success, so they have a successful hunt
in their mind.
And I think that's, there's not trophy. I mean, there's trophy deer there, but it's not about the shooting the biggest buck, or it kind of comes down. Everybody that comes hunting there wants to shoot a deer or a turkey or catch a fish,
something,
whatever. I mean, that's icing on the cake. The big thing is the camaraderie and connecting with other people to know that someone out there cares, and goes from there. So and then there's the guys that we've had a couple blind veterans. We did a blind fishing trip. The first blind veteran we had came on a turkey hunt and got 2 turkeys. Which was legal. I mean, it was.
Hold on.
Uh-huh.
Tell us that story.
Okay, so I don't think. He's a great guy, and he was a captain. And I probably won't get his story straight, but it'll be close enough. I mean, this guy. He is to see him. You would not think John Wayne and the Green Berets.
Okay.
But this guy has more cojones. He is a man. He's a man of men.
Really?
You can put him in any room, and he's a man among anybody.
Really?
They were in I'm going to say a Humvee, just because it's the easiest thing to say. They had a turret up there, and they were under sniper fire. He knew that if someone stuck their head up in that turret,
they get shot.
They're going to get shot. But they had to draw fire to know where the sniper was in order to take the sniper out. And he said, I couldn't ask anybody to stick their head up in that turret, so I did it myself. And he got shot through the optic nerve, through the head, and has lost his sight. And this guy, he had that house memorized in 10 minutes.
Really?
If you walked in there, you would have not known that man was blind. And for some reason, someone moved a cooler.
Oh.
And he stumbled over it, and he goes, "Don't move it! I know where it's at now." So, and of course, these guys, they're like I said, they're kind of my tribe, because they, like, every time he would go to the bathroom, we'd ask him, "You need us to turn the light on for you?" And they crave that.
Make them feel normal,
because it's just a bunch of guys going hunting.
Yeah, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys really are jerks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we are, especially to each other.
Yes,
and then you take us and you put us where there's no one but us.
Yes.
And we take that jerk mentality all the way up to asshole.
Yes, exactly.
Completely.
Right.
And we love it.
And everybody craves it. So, and he'd come back with something, and he was always, but so what we did was to get him a turkey, we bought a thing called an iScope, and what it basically does is it's basically a phone holder that attaches to a rifle scope.
Okay.
So I went and bought a shotgun that had a
rail
on it, and I bought I think it was the Mossberg Turkey Thugs. It's just kind of a common, but it has an AR type style stock on it.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is the thing. If you're blind, but you can feel something that is similar. I mean, everybody in the military shot an AR-15 of some nature, or I'm not real up on the military arms and all that stuff, but that style fundamental.
Yeah.
They had, so that feel would be comfortable to him. We attached it. It came with a rail, and we attached a scope to it. We put the iScope attachment to it. Downloaded the app on his phone, basically his iPhone. He had an iPhone. We downloaded the app on it. So basically, what this iPhone does is attaches to the scope, and through its camera, it puts what you're seeing through the scope on the phone. So now what you can do is you can put a guide behind him, and it doesn't matter the angle. He's seeing the picture on the iPhone,
and he can say up, left, right.
And so they came up with some touch hand signals on his shoulders: what was up, what was down, what was left, what was right. And he was able to shoot the turkey. And we obviously patterned. He got used to it, and we patterned the shotgun. We made sure everything was right. We kind of did it before.
Obviously there was some testing.
We did some stuff, and we got him going on it anyway. And I think he's turkey hunted. He's turkey hunted twice and gotten 3. He's came to 2 turkey hunts, got 3 turkeys.
That's pretty cool.
That's yeah. And then we had a blind deer hunter using the same apparatus, and we got him a deer.
That's pretty awesome.
So, and I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning his name. Tim Hornick is his name, the veteran, and he's a big advocate for blind and the blind veterans organization, and a great man, great guy, awesome individual. And these guys are just ordinary people that have done extraordinary things.
Yeah. And
he came and spoke at one of the camo fundraisers. And he called me and says, "What do you want me to speak about?" He says, "What do you..." And I said, "Well, if I had not been involved with this, if I was just a guy who was hearing about this, I want to support veterans. Here's a veteran organization that takes guys hunting. Why is that important?
Yeah.
What does that do for you? Why is it? Yeah. Why is that a big thing?" And so his talk was that how, when this first happened, he was in, it was detrimental to his psyche.
Yeah.
He was in a bad spot, but then he realized that he got a lot of chances to do a lot of things that he would have never done.
Yeah.
And so, while he still wasn't thankful for it.
Yeah.
But this is the things that help these guys through and cope and
reduces the 22 a day.
Mm-hmm. It does it. And there's been guys and you have to understand that while camo has done great things for individuals and stuff, we're one of many things that have helped them.
Amen.
There's a lot of organizations out there doing things. So we're part of the solution of the biggest thing. It's not like they come to a hunt and then they're okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Those guys are. There's counselor. They've got counseling. They've got all these things.
But the thing is, hold on, you were undervaluing your service.
Well, and I don't mean to do that.
But hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard stories where there are people in really, really bad spots that came.
Mm-hmm.
And they were out of that bad spot when they left. Now, were they completely? No. But at the same time, everybody's different. Just perfect example, you and I. I love horses. I like horseback riding. But I'm going to do it a little bit and I'm going to be done because I've got other things I need to go do.
Right.
You're going to go horseback riding and you're going to do it because it's your job.
Mm-hmm.
And you love doing it, and that's what you need to take care of, so on and so forth. So there's different things that fix different people.
Sure.
And so what you're providing is you're providing the opportunity, not you, Camo Adventures, but you're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Camo Adventures is providing the opportunity for people that get fixed in that way.
Yes, and the other thing is, I think that there's been a lot of guys, and I think the stories that you're talking about, those are guys that maybe, for whatever reason, actually showed up to our deal.
Yeah.
And it set them on the road.
Yes.
The hunt itself didn't, or the
Didn't
time
fix it.
Didn't fix it, but it set them on the road
To fixing it.
fixing it.
Yes.
Because I don't think that just coming hunting and even
No.
as good of experience as that they have there, or that they might have, is going to be just the end all be all. But it might set them on the road to saying, okay, hey, this isn't the end.
Yes.
I still have value. I can do this. I can deal with this.
Yes. 100%.
I'm blind and I shot 2 turkeys. I can deal with this. Not that was Tim's situation, but using that as an example. And we've had them at all stages of that. We've had the guys that was the first thing that they actually came and did. And one thing that we found was that if someone was flaking out, and I kind of use that word because they just get nervous about it. They just, it's out of their control. They're in a situation that they're not in control of.
Yeah.
They've never been there. They don't know what the house looks like. They don't know what the people are going to be. They don't know who else is going to be there. Blah, 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 blah. They're out of, and when it comes to PTSD, when they're out of control of their situation,
They have trouble.
they have troubles. So what we found is that if someone is, and I'm using this term because this is the one that me and Mike Hall use, my veteran friend,
Yeah.
the flaking out, when they get another veteran that says, I've been there, this is what it is, they're solid dudes, it's going to be okay.
It eases them.
It's going to be okay. Then they might show up. Well, then they show up, then they say, hey, okay, I need to get control of some stuff. I'm going to seek help.
Yeah.
And whatever that's through. And I don't know, I cannot speak, I'm kind of out of my wheelhouse when I start speaking about what they actually feel and what they actually go through.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know from what veterans have said. I think we as a country and as a system, healthcare system that we've had for them, we've over medicated and we've done the same thing for the hyperactive kid.
So, sorry. Drugs aren't the freaking fix.
Not always. Now, I'm not saying that they can't help or that some people don't need some medication to help them through a certain period of time. It should not be the end thing. And I don't care whether that's a veteran with PTSD or a hyperactive kid. There are certain things, there's certain mental health things that we can do through activity.
Yes. So I'm gonna speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I was in school today, I could not tell you the level and the amount of drugs that the teachers today would want to give me to mellow me out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? because I was the quintessential wound up, crazy, can't control kid. I make my stepson look like an angel, and we had a teacher at a given school tell us if we did not drug him, give him ADHD drugs, which he did not need, they were going to fail him. Moved him to a different school, problem solved. Smaller school, non-liberal school. The problem solved. So I truly believe and understand personally that there was a point in my life, because anyone who knows me, when I was young, I have a major temper problem. Not minor, major temper problem. So I realized that I needed to learn to control this temper. So I went to the doctor, because at the time, I was 22. I went to the doctor and said, I was like, hey, I can't control my temper. And this is just about the time they were really pushing us to medicate things like that. And he was like, yeah, I got what you need. Here's this. And it was Prozac is what it was at the time. Here, take this. And I was like, okay. So I took it, and it really, it controlled my temper, but it made me and I was on the lowest dosage that they could get, and it made me almost a vegetable. I didn't care about anything, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, I got to get off this. I'm trying to raise kids. I can't raise kids and not care. So I got off it. It did teach me to let my brain slow down a little bit. And then my temper was a little bit controlled. But as soon as I got off the drug, I was much better. But my point is, behind this is, you drug somebody, that changes the human being itself.
I don't think that's it. And like I said, I'm way out of my deal here. I am not a doctor.
Well, neither am I.
Psychiatrist.
No, amen.
I have never been recommended to be on medication. So I'm way out of my deal here. I'm
yeah.
As a cowboy term, I'm talking out of my ass here.
Yeah.
But we have great technology. We have great science with medicines and things. These are tools that we can use.
Yeah.
And I believe in them. I believe in science. I believe that we need to be able to use these things.
So
it's not the end product that we need. I think there's a lot of things that can be done with letting people.
So I'm going to jump back to where I was actually headed with the conversation.
Okay, yeah,
So,
we probably need to get back to camo. We're way out of our.
Well, no, I'm going.
Now we're mental scientists.
Yeah, I'm going back to mental scientist here. So when I was in school, in high school, and everything else, I was extremely physically active. I found the extreme physical activity controlled my temper. Okay? I could control my temper as long as I was extremely physically active. As soon as I stopped being extremely physically active, my temper spiked. So as soon as I got out of high school, I went into the workforce. I had a job that was extremely physically active, and my temper was in check. I left that extremely physically active job, went to a factory job that wasn't as physically active, and I created issues. So my point behind this is everybody's different. And I think most people with some kind of issue need to be, for people like myself, let's talk about people like myself, they need to be active physically and mentally to keep that anxieties. because the anger came from anxiety. So to keep the anxieties down, to control the other emotions that go with the anxiety. So, sorry.
And I think, we go back to Theodore Roosevelt. He said the vigorous life. He was always talking about the vigorous life. And if we want to get into, if we've went this far. So let's go on. Let's go on here. The war against men and the war against masculinity.
Yes. What a line of shit.
Because we're men. We can't help ourselves.
No.
Not that we need to be complete assholes.
Yeah, no,
to
we don't.
Society.
No, but still, we got to be guys.
And we have lost that. We have, and it's, do we even want to go where I'm?
Just
where
keep
I'm
going.
headed? Because we have a mental health problem in our young men in this country.
Yes, we do.
And it's because they do not have an identity.
Yes. 100%. And they're trying to destroy that identity at every freaking turn.
Because we cannot, we can, the term is toxic masculinity. And so John Wayne, my God, John Wayne wouldn't make a movie nowadays.
No. And the thing about it is, okay, let's jump back to camo, but kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a guy that was afraid of toxic masculinity would have popped his head up to save the rest of his crew to find the sniper?
That's the definition of it.
Yes, it is. Do you think a guy with a man bun is going to go wade and save people drowning in the river?
I'm not going to say that he wouldn't, because I've seen guys that didn't fit my
masculine.
my picture of what a man should be, do very manly things.
Well, okay, let's go mentally then. Do you the way they're trying to break down men today?
Yes.
Do you think a broken down man's going to go save people? Do you think at some point that this is some kind of scheme to destroy the...
Let's look at animals, since we're all hunters and outdoorsmen, and look at animals. I deal with animals on a day-to-day basis. What does a female dog, cow, horse, whatever, what do they protect?
Their children.
They're young, and they will kill you
Yes.
for their young, and not even think about it.
No.
They will not feel guilty ever.
No.
That is toxic femininity.
Feminist. Yes.
That is what a female should do. That is
Amen.
what they're... Now, I'm not trying to throw everybody in the same basket here. There are females out there, women out there that don't want children. They don't, whatever.
Those are the same
That's
cattle you
okay.
get rid of.
Well, I know, but they're people. We're people. We're not cattle. So
True.
We have that choice.
Yes.
So those are fine. I get it. I understand that everybody's different. Everybody has different things. But let's get back down to what they're, what, I shouldn't say what they're supposed to be, but what
we're wired to be.
What we're wired to be on the generality.
Yes.
And now you talk about a male dog, a bull. They're on the fight about 90% of the time just because they want to be.
Yep.
Not that we need to go out there picking a fight. And I'm not, we don't need to act like animals.
No.
We're people.
Yes.
So we don't have to act like animals. But we are wired to protect
And defend.
Yep. That's just, we're wired that way. We're wired to build. And we're talking in generalities. And it's okay. What we've lost, I think, is the okayness.
Yes.
Everybody talks about, we've got to be okay with everything.
We're too worried about upsetting someone.
So what's wrong with me being, why isn't it okay if I want to be John Wayne?
Yeah. It's okay for you to be it's okay, Wes, if you say you're a woman.
Yes.
But it's not okay if you say, I'm going to follow after John Wayne.
Right. So be okay with it. If you want me to be okay with what you want to do, then you need to be okay with what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I can say you're wrong and still like you.
Yes.
I'm okay with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bother you about it. I'm going to tell you my point of view. I'm going to tell you my perspective. And I am more than happy to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk away with knowing the other one's perspective.
Whether you agree or not.
And never agree. And never agree.
Because ultimately.
But I'm going to know your perspective, and I can see it. I can
Yeah.
understand. Okay, I understand why you think the way you think. I don't agree with you, but I understand why you think the way you think. We got a long ways from camo and veterans here.
This is how this podcast goes. And ultimately, you and I both believe in God, right? And ultimately, we understand we'll all be judged one day. Mm-hmm. And so you and I, as believers in Christ, right, we are not going to sit here and say, I'm going to judge you. We're going to let you have the opportunity that Christ gave you to choose.
And I like the phrase, and it's been accredited to a lot of people. I like it best 'cause since I'm Lutheran.
Yeah,
I like it best when it's credited to Martin Luther. But the phrase is preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. So we need to live our life in a way that represents Christ.
Yes.
And Christ sat with the biggest sinners in the world.
Yep.
From the Sanhedrin
Yes.
to the whore in the streets.
Yep.
And if you'll look at what he told them both, it was the same thing.
And tell us what that was.
That he is the way, the truth, and light.
Amen.
And that's it.
Yes. Amen.
And everybody wants to talk, we all want to interpret that the way we want to interpret it.
Yes.
But
it boils down to he is the way,
he told them,
he is the truth,
right,
he is the light.
But he told everybody the same thing.
Yes.
And he lived it.
Yes.
Through his death and his resurrection.
Yes. Amen. So, now that we opened up all this, we're going to go back to camo. And thank you for sharing that. Camo Adventures, you guys are an organization that I really, really want to get behind. One of the biggest things about Camo Adventures that no other 501c that I know about. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there's others out there, so don't beat me up, people. But the one I know about, 501c, that 100% of the dollars that go to Camo Ventures goes directly to veterans opportunities. You guys do not pay CEOs. You guys do not pay secretaries. You do not pay paper pushers. Nothing. 100% of the money that you guys utilize goes straight to the veterans.
The vice president, one of the big drivers in all of our organization is Bill Eckert. And he actually, from his office, pays people to do the secretarial work, all the work. But it's part of his employees. Part of their job is to do this. Nobody gets a salary. Nobody. And it will never be that way. I told them when I became on the board, one of the first meetings, I said, we are this right now, and I said, we need to stay this way. And I said, beyond we do an audit, if we need to pay an auditor, we need to pay a lawyer to do things like that, blah, blah, blah. But nobody gets a salary. And I said, the first time someone gets a paycheck, I'm out.
Yeah.
My ground is gone. My house is gone.
Everything's gone.
I'm off the board. Done.
Yeah.
You guys can go find another spot to be.
Because the thing that I appreciate about that is I can get behind that in a heartbeat.
We obviously pay for our website. We pay things. We pay.
But you're not paying
We're not paying a person. No one
Yes.
gets a salary.
So there's a big difference between paying expenses
Correct.
and paying employees.
Correct.
Or a salary to a CEO or something like that can say, oh, I need a 500% raise.
Yeah, we're not giving anybody salary, and like I said, as long as I'm involved, or
Yeah.
I will not be involved if there ever is that
Yes.
point. If there ever, and I think we can serve better. Maybe let's say, it comes to the point where it's so big that we need to pay somebody to do something, pay the salary to somebody. I think we can serve better. I think we can do our job better, staying small enough to handle it ourselves.
Yes. And honestly, you can get extremely big and still never pay anybody. As long as all the people are vested in your organization. Because being vested in the organization is where you're able to maximize your resources, because basically what you're doing is you're having every person donate their time.
Their time and their things. And, if there comes down to it, that house could be a rental house. That house could house an employee of the ranch. It could do things that, maybe one of my kids could live there when they graduate high school and they come, if they decide to come back in the business, or even if they don't, maybe they just need a place to live, they could live there. But that sacrifice to do this, and again, I'm not tooting my own horn, because that is no sacrifice compared to what these guys have done.
Amen. Amen. So I think we are definitely into her today. So I am going to. We talked about.
We're going to talk about camo some more. Let's get on the light side of it.
Yes.
We've got really deep and really serious.
Yes.
And I'm kind of a jokester, so.
Oh, I want to hear that. Yes, definitely in a heartbeat.
So let's go on to something else.
Yes, that's what I was trying to. So, what would you think of right at this moment? What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about food. We haven't got to food yet.
Okay. Oh, food. Food. So, you reached out to me 3 years ago, and said, I worked on this rub that you kind of, between several internet searches and everything else, you put it together and you sent me this process that you used. And so we developed a rub for you. And this rub is now going to be released. Matter of fact, I just got the quote back today. We'll be placing the orders for it, and we'll be releasing it here in the next few weeks. So, with that being said, why did you originally need that?
Well, I've raised beef, raised cattle. We really need to separate the two businesses. There's a cattle business and there's a beef business. While they're totally interconnected, you can't have beef without cattle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's two separate businesses there. But at the same time, beef demand makes cattle demand.
Yes.
So I woke up one day, to put it bluntly, and realized I didn't know how to cook beef. Didn't know how to cook what I was trying to tell everybody to eat.
Yeah.
My mom was a wonderful cook, great cook, good old Midwest food, Okie food. Her family was completely Okies. went to the California Depression.
Yeah.
So good old Midwestern, Okie, Texas fare
Yeah.
is what we ate. But it was awesome, and it was good, and it was flavorful. But, the big thing is, everybody wants to be able to barbecue a steak. And I kind of woke up one day and realized I didn't know how to barbecue a steak.
You didn't know how to cook a steak.
I did not know how to cook a steak. I cooked them, and sometimes they were great, and sometimes they weren't. I was like, okay, there's a process to this.
Yeah.
You can make them
there's
great
like
every
500
time.
processes.
Right, but you can make them great every time. Whether you're cooking over, our barbecue grill for a long time was there was a company called Crystal Licks, and it was a cattle supplement company.
Yeah.
So it was a hard molasses tub, and so their tubs were half barrels. So they would cut barrels in half, roll the top down so it wasn't sharp edge, pour their product in there, it would harden, and then you would put it out for cattle. Well, you could take their tub back.
Repurpose
You
tub.
could take the tub back. At that time, you could recycle the tub. You could take the tub back to them. You paid a deposit, a $15 deposit on the tub.
Oh.
So you took the deposit. When you went into the tub, you took your empty one back. You got $15 back for taking the tub back. When we were so poor, I was like, I debated about whether to do this or not. Because I needed the $15 back.
Yeah.
So, but what I did was I cut that tub, so it's a half barrel. I cut it again, so I had an open ring.
Yeah.
We made a little fire ring for the yard, and we have a lot of hedge or Bodark or Osage orange, whatever you want to call it, in our country. And I know it always makes a good fire. And I know some people don't like to cook off it because it pops and one thing or another. But what you need to do is you need to get it cooked down. You need to get it down to
the coals.
Get the coals. And so you had to start your fire like 3 hours before you, because you either had raging inferno or you had cold dead ashes, So you had to be careful about getting your fire started, getting the right coals. So that was our barbecue grill for a long time, and I could make a decent steak on it, but it wasn't. At that time, I still liked to go to a restaurant better.
Yeah.
Than what I cooked at home.
A restaurant.
I'd rather go to a restaurant and eat a steak than I would eat my own.
I understand why you were concerned.
So I kind of just thought, this is kind of weird. So I finally kind of got some things going for me. I was using propane grills, and as we
earned a little more money.
As we finally kind of got something going for us.
I understand it.
And we kind of went through a couple different grills and one thing or another, and then I ended up with a pellet grill. This is I don't know how long I guess we got all night, but anyway, I decided that I wanted a really good grill. We had for camo, we had a Weber, and I wanted a really nice Weber for my house.
Yeah,
and so my wife said, not until we have a covered
patio
porch, somewhere that we can keep it dry because they rust out.
Yeah,
you're buying these. I was buying the cheapest propane grill I could buy. So anyway, that started this whole. Ended up being an entire house remodel and an addition.
It sounds like your wife had it planned out well.
Probably so, but I got my barbecue grill. So in the meantime, a friend of ours said, "Hey, if you're going to buy a grill, buy this pellet grill." And I was like, "I don't want a pellet grill." Blah, blah, blah. He says, "Well, let me bring mine over and
try it out.
And we'll cook some steaks on it." He said, "We'll bring it over. You cook me some steaks on it, and then you can see whether you like it or not." So he brought it over, and I was using a commercial steak seasoning at that time that I really liked. And anyway, he had the smallest. The one he brought over because it was handy to bring over was the smallest kind of take with you,
like tailgater.
Put on the boat type pellet grill, or take with you to the campground or whatever. And so anyway, we cooked those steaks on there, and I was like, man, that's awesome. So I bought a bigger, better version of that same brand. Grill, and got along anyway. And so then I kind of got, of course, you get into that stuff then, and of course, my biggest mantra is if if less is more, just think how much more would be. So I can't just be happy.
Yeah, with a little.
With the commercial rub and and the pellet grill.
I have to kick it up a notch.
So the next thing you know, I'm 100% into this deal, and I'm trying to, and I'm still want a stick burner. I still want a stick burner smoker.
Oh, just be patient, son.
And so one of these days I'll get one. But anyways, so I kind of came up with this deal and this process of making hamburgers and steaks, and I could make them consistent, and they were good every time, and they were cooked the same every time. Kind of came up with my with my grill, with my process, and so then anyway, I think I'd hunted with you a couple times.
Yeah.
We really, and I'd ate your food, but really didn't know how much of a cook and how into it you were. But somehow we got talking about
barbecue,
about it, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm into this thing, and that was probably at the height of the go to it, and so anyway, but if I'm going to sell something, if I'm going to be involved in saying, if I'm going to tell you need to go eat beef, I need to know how to prepare it.
Yep. And
say, hey, this is how good it can be, and I want it to be the best. I want someone to come to my house and say, that's the best steak I ever had.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best brisket I ever had. That's I'm not satisfied with
mediocre.
It's edible. It's edible.
So with that being said, how was the brisket tonight?
The brisket was wonderful. That was perfect. I mean, it was just melting in your mouth. I mean, that was about the most tender brisket I've had. And the big chunks, the big thick slices. I don't want them little pre-sliced.
Little tiny pre-sliced things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you were able to realize that was your rub on there. Well, I say your rub. I should say our rub.
It's your rub now because you've perfected it. So.
Well, yeah, we took your thought process and built on it.
And I learned so much from talking to you because I was basically using my steak seasoning as a rub,
and it doesn't work. And
it doesn't work that way. So now, of course, yours isn't commercial yet, so I'm not able to get it from you. So I'm still making my own.
Yeah.
But I have two different processes in
how you develop your
I have a burger steak seasoning,
Yep.
and I have a beef rub.
So
basically using what you've done to perfect it. I've changed it up a little bit, but of course I will have to admit that my burger and steak thing is pretty much the same as it was. Yeah. But I'm using the rub. I'm using your perfected recipe.
Yeah. The one thing I'll warn you is so we took the beef rub and we turned it into a beef seasoning.
Okay.
We now have that, not commercial yet. It's coming. Mm-hmm. But the beef seasoning we serve to Standing Stone Kennels. We got that developed. We put it on some ribeyes. We served it to them. Their answer was, I don't know what you put on this, but it is amazing, and we want more.
Well, I think the original recipe for my burger steak seasoning that I make is better than, in my opinion, and that's the neat thing about food is that I think this is awesome, and you can think barf.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
That's why there's 1,000 different rubs and seasonings.
Oh, yeah.
But I think my burger steak seasoning that I make up myself is better than the commercial that I was trying to copy.
Oh, yeah. It is. Completely. Excuse me.
You're snorting that water again.
Yeah. What I can tell you is. Sorry, I'm still choking.
You gotta quit snorting that.
Yeah, I gotta stop that. But what I can tell you is the steak and burger seasoning off the beef rub. It's there. You and I both know there's an element in that that you're not able to get.
Right.
That we've got into ours, ours.
Well, I've got a little bit that you've given me.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I'm sparingly with it.
Yes.
In fact, I'm using the original process on the seasoning to save it for the rub.
So it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty spot on. So with that being said, what do you think about the burn-ins tonight?
They were very good. They were very good. They were very good. And I don't want to take anything away from them not being very good.
Yes.
They weren't my style of barbecue.
Yeah, you liked what we did originally.
Yes.
So tonight I experimented with something new.
They were too saucy for me.
Yes. So when he means saucy, he means so you can get burn-ins are traditionally a dry rub burn-in. So
it's the end of the meat that got burnt.
Yes, it's the end of the meat that got burnt. They threw it in a thing. They re-seasoned it. They threw it on the grill for a little bit, caramelized everything, and then put it on your plate. So we tried a little bit something different this evening, and it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. I would say that it all, just like you said, it all depends on the type of person you are.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people that like saucy meat. They like the sauce already on the meat and everything. I want to be able to put the sauce.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I want to pick my sauce.
Yeah.
Because I make my own sauce too.
Yeah.
Because less is more.
Yeah.
Think how much more would be.
Yeah. Amen. And the other thing is, to me, these burn-ins tonight really weren't burn-ins. To me.
Yeah, I would say that they wouldn't classify as burn-ins to me because they're not the kind of burn-ins I like.
Yeah. They didn't. I tried something new. I thought, hey, let's do this.
I would say if you were doing that if you were doing burn-ins for a catering event,
oh, they'd be perfect.
You betcha.
They would be flawless. But burn-ins as a if I was doing it for family and friends that really love
if I went to a restaurant, ordered burn-ins, I'd be disappointed.
Yes, they would be good. They'd have good flavor, but you would be like, this really isn't burn-ins.
Right.
But as a buffet catering style, they'd work. But I liked them. I think if you reclassified them into something else, they'd be good.
It's called a barbecue beef.
Yes. Yeah. But and keep in mind, folks, we didn't put barbecue sauce on it. We just used rubs and some other techniques to get it there. But the idea of burnt ends, they didn't meet.
Right.
I didn't even cook to what I believe burnt ends should be.
Right. The thing I like about a burnt is
it's crispy.
It's burnt, and so you want the crispiness, but you still want some juiciness in there, and you want the meat to be kind of the meat's almost overdone.
Yeah.
The meat part of it, but the outside of it's crispy. You know the best burn ends, and I mean obviously I think where burn ends came from is because it was the burn end. They cut it off and they decided, well, I'm going to cut this off and chunk it up and call it a burn end
and put a little bourbon in it, stir it around.
Or it wasn't even perfected to that point. At that time, it was probably just chunked up because it was burnt. They put it over here,
throw some seasoning on it.
And someone grabbed it and ate it because it was
junk.
It was because it was what they put off to the side. And I thought, man, this is pretty dang good. So
Yeah.
then they kind of perfected it on to the beyond that.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that original burn end.
You really like the ones we made you.
Yeah.
So honestly, I like those better, but this was not bad.
And to tell you the truth, when I do a brisket now, I kind of let that flat get a little overdone,
So-
and I kind of chunk that off, and I kind of make absolute beginning of the
Yeah.
Garden of Eden burn ends, the very beginning. So they're actually not done any more than what I did them. I just chunk
Cut
up
'em
that.
up and-
I just chunk up that overdone flat, and that's burn ends, and this is
So
sliced brisket.
I'd rather just cut the flat off, put my gauge in there, measure that, chunk them up,
And
They do it?
and do the whole thing. Yeah, and they're very good that way.
and I can tell you this: I really liked what I did tonight, but I won't do it again.
I think if in the right crowd, in the right spot, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And here's the downside: it was really good. I mean, it was flavorful. It was everything I'd expect in a good dish. It just wasn't burnt ends.
It wasn't my style.
No, actually, I struggle with even classifying it as that. But that's a debate, right?
And like I said, that's the neat thing about food is everybody has a different idea of what's good.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Steven Johnson likes the black and blue steak.
yeah,
He wants that thing. He wants 1,000-degree pizza oven. I think he's even bought one. So it's just so he can cook his steaks on it. And he puts them in there, and the outside is just burnt to a crisp, and the inside is cold center.
Yep.
That's the way he likes it. I don't like it that way.
yeah. And the thing about now people are surveying stuff. Put it in a vacuum sealed bag.
Yep.
Put it in the water at X temperature, probably about 128 degrees. Let the steak sit in there forever. It's going to be 128 degrees. Pull the steak out, throw it in a skillet, sear both sides with butter and rosemary, and pull that steak out, cut it, and the inside of it is still about 130 degrees, and boom.
I got to get some ice, and then I'm going to tell you a story about how a restaurant sells select beef.
Okay, let's get ice.
So the Story restaurant, there's different grades of beef, and the grades of beef have to do with marbling.
Yeah.
Marbling is the internal muscular fat. So, and what that does is add flavor and it doesn't necessarily add tenderness. Tenderness has has stuff to do with other things.
Aging.
It has to do with the temperament of the animal at slaughter. The more wound up an animal is,
Tougher
the tougher it is going to be. It's going to be. That's one of the great things that technology has given us in our slaughterhouses, and is good animal handling. So they're not wound up. They're not scared. They're not. We need to respect that animal and make sure that we're doing everything right. It's the same as when we're hunting. We want to make a good ethical shot.
Yes.
We don't want that animal to suffer. In our slaughterhouses, the same way. So tenderness has nothing to do with marbling, but marbling has everything to do with grading. That's what it's graded on.
Yes.
So the select is going to have less fat. It's going to have a little bit less flavor. The fat is kind of when that fat renders, it adds flavor. It also adds our perception of juiciness.
Yes.
Because what that is rendered fat. That
Yep.
juiciness is rendered fat. So select is going to be a cheaper cut of meat. If a restaurant can figure out how to sell you a select steak, they're going to mark it up there about the same price as what you would get a choice.
Oh yeah.
And pay a little bit less. So what they do is they wet age those with they put them in the vacuum bags you're talking about, but they put
sous
it yeah, and they're going to put it in there with their marinade.
Yes.
They're going to put their marinade and the steak in the vacuum bag. They're going to vacuum bag it. They're going to sous vide it, Hopefully
Yep.
I pronounced it right.
Yeah, close enough.
Half-ass boil.
I don't think I'm saying it
Half-ass
right
boil.
either. Yeah,
I think
half-ass
I
boil.
think that's French
That's
for half-ass boil. And then they're going to take it out of that package, slap it on the grill, get their good grill marks on it, sear the outside.
Yep.
It's kind of it's a way of doing the reverse sear that we do
Yes.
when we smoke stuff, and that's the way I do hamburgers anymore. Is I actually smoke them and then
Didn't burn them.
at a low and then burn the crap out of them and smash them.
Yep.
I'm a smash burger guy. I love a smash burger.
What? Oh,
So anyway, let me finish my story about
Okay.
let me finish my story about the. So this thing has gotten tender from the wet age process, and it's got all that flavor in it from that being packed in that unfrozen, but chilled
yes.
in that vacuum bag with
Yep.
that marinade.
Marinade. Yeah. And
And that marinade's probably got something in it, like an acid or something that's actually going to break it down
Tenderizes,
and
yep.
tenderizes that steak. So now you can go to a restaurant, you're buying a select steak, paying choice price. It tastes the same every restaurant that you go to with that name on the sign out there has got it, and they're marketing that select beef, which we have a select beef. We have a lot of select beef out there.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of beef out there. We have choice, we have prime, and most of the time and then the other thing of the grading, grading used to be a person. They cut that, and they looked at
Yeah.
it. Was the ribeye, wasn't it? I'm sorry. I think it's the ribeye that they looked at, and they looked at and a person graded that. They were trained to look to recognize the amount of marbling. They graded it. Now it's all gone to computer eyes.
how?
They've got a computer eye that looks at that.
Oh,
same
computer eye.
computer eye, and after that, it seemed like our grading went. There's
To
a lot.
crap?
More, there's a lot more prime. There's a lot more choice than there ever was. Now, so now I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's just because we've improved our cattle a lot too.
Yeah. That's
And we've improved our feeding and one thing or another. So
science.
So I'm not saying that it's all has to do with that computer eye grading. that they're
But
grading
most
it wrong.
most likely that
I'd say it
computer eye is so this human
Mm-hmm.
said, here's a picture of marbling.
Mm-hmm.
This is X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another picture of marbling, X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth. And then they put this data into a computer,
Mm-hmm.
and this eye looks up and says, the pattern is X, Y, and Z, or Q, T, and P,
Right.
right?
It matches it, so they're going to grade it, and it depends on how they set that thing. And and they calibrate. They're supposed to calibrate those every so often and
Yeah.
whatnot. But that's a USDA grade. That's a USDA thing. That's
Yeah.
our government at work. So
Yeah.
your tax dollars pay for somebody to grade that steak. Turn the bottle over.
Yep, I did.
It's good.
I-
Good thing it's got that plastic cork in it.
Yeah, freaking plastic cork. Just like Carson said, I'm always messing with something. Tell Steven not to mess with Mike, so I mess with this bottle and dump it onto the mic.
So now, the smash burgers.
Yes.
So-
smash. Hold on a 2nd.
Mhm.
When I'm cooking a burger, you've seen when it's done, right? You know how that works.
Right.
I was a steak cook for a while. Not saying I was the best at that time, but the steak philosophy sticks with hamburgers. Okay, and as soon as you smash a hamburger, you're pushing out all the goodness of that hamburger. Why would you want to smash a hamburger?
Okay, so here's the thing. You don't cook it enough to render the fat on the inside. So you're smoking it like 165 on the smoker.
Oh,
No higher than 180. And you can smoke that thing for 30 minutes. Maybe
yes,
even-
because it never
even
gits
as-
above 180.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you make a big fat. I don't make a ball. A true smash burger is actually a great
Ball.
big meatball.
Yep, yep.
I just can't make a big fat patty.
Yep.
And then I have a griddle, a cast iron griddle, that's on another burner that is as high as I can get it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I take that big fat patty off the smoker, put it on the hot griddle, let it cook for a minute, and then just smash the crap out of it. So then you have this big, because I like
Wide.
right
flat
so
hamburger.
I like when I eat a hamburger, I want to have this big flat patty sticking out from the bun. Even if you got a big, nice, good bun, I want it still sticking out and being flat and it's crispy. It's kind of got the same. It's all tender on the inside,
And crispy
medium
on the
well.
outside. So you're sous videing in a smoker.
Exactly.
And the smoker is going to give it a nice wood flavor.
All that flavor.
All that flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing. Have you ever shredded onions, covered the bottom of your pan, then smash your burger on
I
the
haven't done that. I know that's a thing, and that would be good.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Now,
Because I like, on my hamburgers, I don't like the sauteed onions on there. I like I want a big, fresh purple onion, red onion that's hotter than crap. I love those good, on my hamburgers,
yeah,
I like that good, hot
purple onion.
purple onion. The great big, I want it.
You want it to
I
cover
want it
the whole
I want
burger.
it the size of the bun. I want the onion slice should be the same size as the bun.
Fairly thick? Or
Yeah.
Kinda thin?
Yeah, about a quarter of an inch thick.
Oh, you want an onion.
I want onion on there.
You don't want a little
And then I
onion.
want a big
you
old
want
piece of lettuce and pickles and just no tomato.
yeah.
I'm not a tomato guy. I can't get on the
You can't
tomato.
get on
I
the
can't get
tomato
on the
thing.
tomato train.
What about ketchup?
I love ketchup. And
You
I
love
salsa.
ketchup, but you don't like.
And I love
tomato.
fried green tomatoes.
Oh, you're talking southern
But-
right there, brother.
But now you get on them ripe tomatoes out of the garden, them things are nasty. Pretty sure they'll kill you.
The right tomatoes will kill you.
You got to cook them. They're poisonous unless you cook them.
I remember as a kid walking through the garden, pulling cherry tomatoes, eating so many cherry tomatoes out of the garden that the acid from the tomato blistered my tongue.
My boys and my wife are the same way. I think Reed, my middle boy, I think he's the one that's not much on tomatoes. But he's not as bad as I am. They'll make me gag. They're poisonous. They're part of the nightshade family. It's not right.
That's pretty good.
It's not right. You got to cook them to get the poison out of them.
The best thing about this conversation is it's hilarious. So we have talked about your business slightly. So when we talk about your business, your dad talked about having pigs and cattle in a building under a roof.
Pigs in a
Pigs.
mhm.
Did you guys meet that?
We've never went the pig route. I think that there's a way to house those pigs. Production agriculture's changed, and we need to be able to go with the future. And I've seen hog operations next door, literally next door to my property, across the fence, that did it entirely wrong. Confinement hog operations, and they did everything wrong. And it was bad, it was horrible, and it was bad for the environment. I didn't like it. In fact, another neighbor ended up suing, winning a lawsuit, shut him down. It was a whole deal, and they did it wrong. I've also seen, I've got a very good friend, a high school friend. His dad has a confinement hog operation that you have to get up next to the lagoon to smell it. He does everything right, and it's done right, and he's been rewarded for it because he's continued to be able to get contracts to feed hogs. There's a way to do everything and do it right. Not to say that he won't ever have a spill, something won't happen. Natural disaster, complete flood, whatever the situation may be. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. And we have to accept in ag production in this day that we need to be watching what we're doing.
Yeah.
We need to be making sure that we're doing no harm. And, there's things on our place that I know don't make the best wildlife habitat.
Yeah.
But I'm going to continue to do them because it's the best thing for my operation.
Yeah.
But I try to make sure that I've got areas that I'm completely dedicated to wildlife habitat. I've got 20 acres that is absolutely nothing but wildlife habitat, and it's managed as such. We've got another 80 acres that it's kind of half and half. We're really doing trying to do some stuff for wildlife in that area, native grasses, but we're going to be grazing it, and it's not going to be all 100% for grazing. What I do, the way I manage it, isn't going to be 100% for grazing. It's also not going to be 100% for wildlife management.
Yeah.
And then there's part of my place that's it's 100% just for grazing.
Yeah.
I don't care a crap about wildlife habitat in that portion of it.
Yeah. Well, the thing about what,
but they still get something out of it.
Yeah. Here's two variables that people don't think about. Let's say you have a field that you graze pretty heavy, right? And you take, let's say, a brush pile. Let's say 5 brush piles, right? Each brush pile covers 100 square feet, right? And you just leave it. Don't touch a brush pile, just leave it. That brush pile creates habitat for things like quail. And the thing about what people don't realize, some people may not realize, is cattle eat corn. They break the corn, but they cannot digest 100% of the corn.
Sure.
So they produce a byproduct out their rear end that is full of protein and nutrients for birds, rabbits, all kinds of things out there that can come and eat off that.
And the same way with any of the wild seeds, like the cattle,
Yes.
the cattle that are out there grazing on my place. If they're grazing, they're not eating corn, but they're eating something with seeds in it.
Yeah.
And they're spreading that seed. They're and it's in a perfect environment. When it drops out their rear end, it's in the perfect environment for it to
grow. Yeah. And that's the other
The same as bird droppings. I mean,
Yeah.
why do we have in my country you have to spray the fence rows to keep the brush out of it? Why is there brush there? Because the birds are eating the seeds, sitting on the fence and crapping.
Yeah.
And so that's why the brush starts there.
Yep.
Now,
exactly.
once it starts, and obviously it's dropping seeds where it's at, and
Yeah.
it just continues to be a problem. But yeah, we've got, I don't know. We could go on with this conservation thing forever because it's been one of my biggest things. When I was in high school, that was the first time I realized that some people thought that ranchers were being detrimental to the environment. And I thought to myself, my gosh, we're out here every day. We're doing the best.
Yeah.
And then I realized, through further study that, sometimes we aren't doing the best. Sometimes we aren't. And even when we are trying to do the best or we think we're doing the best, we're not doing any good for wildlife habitat.
Let me give an example of that. When you spray your fence lines. There's a difference between trimming trees out of your fence line and spraying your fence line. So if you just cut the trees out and spray some whatever on the root or on the base of that tree so it doesn't destroy your fence is one thing. But if you spray your whole fence line, you're destroying habitat for birds to get in the fence line.
Now, that being said, you have to find that balance.
Yes.
It's all about balance.
Yes, it is.
When we built I don't know, can't remember. It was about 2 miles of brand new fence that had needed to be replaced for 20 years. This last year, I spent enough money on that fence. There ain't no trees growing in it.
Oh, no.
And there never will be. As long as I'm alive.
Amen.
I guarantee you.
Amen.
When I saw what the trees did to that fence, and
Yep.
it was in bad shape to begin with, and the trees didn't help. We're not going to let that happen.
No.
We can have habitat other places. They don't need it in the fence.
Yeah. And
So we have to find that balance.
Yeah, that's what I meant by going through and cutting out the saplings, right? And the thing is, people.
That thing's
I'm
gonna
gonna-
be. We
I'm
spray
gonna-
Roundup underneath it. We don't even want any grass growing up in that fence.
So,
It is a dead zone. It is not habitat.
so that's where I'm headed. I'm gonna play pros and cons on this fence line thing.
Sure.
So, pro. Just go through and cut the trees. Put some. I can't remember the name of it, but it's
Tordon is what we use.
there
on
it
the
is.
stump.
Tordon. Put some Tordon on it. Once you cut the little sapling out and go. Now here's the thing. You got to pay somebody to go do that. Or you got to do that.
Yes.
And you got to spend your time doing it.
Yes.
How much time do you got to spend cutting trees out?
Well, guaranteed, as much as that fence cost, I'll take the time.
Well, this is where I'm going. So, or you can go around once a year and round up it.
Yes, and keep it
Right.
We round up under the fence to keep and then we go along with like remedy or something like that to kill the woodies that
Yeah.
that are going to continue to come up in it.
So you can do that once a year, or you can go around X number of times.
Every 10 years and pay someone or build a new dang
Well,
fence
I'm
or
talking
whatever.
about taking a saw and cutting down
Oh,
your
yeah.
saplings.
Yeah.
You're going around.
You're gonna have to go around it.
nonstop.
Yeah, you're going to have to go around every year regardless.
Yeah.
Whether you're spraying it or until we kind of get it cleared out. I mean, this obviously has roots, and when you cut down a tree, you don't kill it.
No.
Even an oak tree,
No.
there's a lot of root system there.
Yes.
And so it's going to come back. So if you and there's times when we're just going to spray it and it's going to die, and then the next spring it comes back again.
Yep. So there's a cost effect to cleaning out the tree line.
Yes.
So the ultimate best thing to do is and even where I tell you to put 100 square foot brush pile somewhere, right? Put 5 of those out there. That's 500 square feet that cattle aren't feeding on. That costs you money. So that's the thing that people don't realize is that there's more to everything we do.
Wildlife habitat costs me money.
Yes.
I don't care what it is.
Significant amount
Yes.
of money.
Now we can do things that help both.
Yes.
We can do things that are good grazing and it's adequate habitat. It's not perfect habitat, but it's adequate, and it's perfect grazing. We can do both, and so that's what we need to think about. And we need to think about feeding people.
Yes.
And we have a protein shortage in this world, and so we have to be able to make enough. We need to make enough protein for everybody. And now, if that means confinement, it means confinement. We can confine those areas that we're making absolute zero habitat.
Yes.
But I can tell you this: I was wanting to go. I've wanted to get my turkey Grand Slam.
Yeah.
I've gotten Eastern. That's what we have at home. And I've wanted to go, and of course I've contacted some people. In fact, I came out here hunting Rios once, and probably could have got one and screwed up and didn't do it. But anyway, the Merriams, of course, are in Nebraska and South Dakota, and I contacted some people that I know, ranchers that I know in Nebraska,
Yeah.
and they said, "Yeah, just come up." They said, "Just sit in the pickup. We'll feed the cows in the feedlot, and the turkeys come up there, and he's out of the."
Well, that's not really what you're looking for.
And I said, "Just carry your." In fact, he said, "Just bring your shotgun and go feed with me one morning." Want to feed in the feedlot. So, okay, that feedlot offers zero habitat,
Yes.
zero habitat,
But food.
but it offers food,
Yep.
and they're feeding the wildlife, and it's costing them. It's out of their own pocket.
Yep.
That food that they're putting out there, they're attributing anything. Of course, that turkey's not going to eat pounds, but there's a herd of them out there. They're
Yes.
eating pounds
Yes.
over a period of time. They've attributed those pounds of feed to cattle,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be out there for the cow.
Yeah.
Because
It's supposed to be pounds per
it's
pound.
it's supposed to be out there for that they're not getting.
Yeah.
Now, so even where we're offering zero habitat, we're offering something.
Yes.
And where we've got these confinement chickens and confinement hogs and things like that, I'm not involved in any of that, but I do know we're offering zero habitat in that area.
Yes.
But that is natural fertilizer
Yep.
done properly, and natural fertilizer is always better than chemical fertilizer.
Yep.
We wouldn't have the big algae bloom in the
lakes. Yep.
and the things with that with natural fertilizer as much as we do with the commercial fertilizer.
Correct. And people utilizing natural fertilizer has reduced dramatically.
Chicken litter is a huge thing in all the farming operations, and even some of the ranching operations with growing hay and things like that.
Yeah. And we're going to have to start cutting her close because
Yeah,
we're on the 4-hour marker, buddy.
We're getting ready to have to go to work in the morning.
Yeah. Carson's back there looking. Steven.
He's going right here.
I've got to go
directly from here to work.
Yeah, he's going straight from here to work, and he's got to be there at 5 in the morning. So we're going to wrap her up tonight. Wes, I really do appreciate you coming out.
Hey, it was fun.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to look in that camera right there, and any promo, your business, camo, whatever you feel important to you at this very point in time. Excuse me. Feel free to share it at this moment.
Sure. Well, if you need me to buy some CaliforniaSpinksRanch.com, CamoAdventures.com is probably the one that you need to visit. That's the one that's probably going to do the best for this world and help out a veteran. And then you also need to check out
CQ Game Bird
CQ Game Birds and
on
go
Facebook.
hunting. Yep, they're
Yeah.
on Facebook and too cheap to get a website, I guess. So.
Yeah. I found the website didn't pay off. I spent a lot of money on it and it didn't do nothing.
Just get something going and go hunting with
Yeah.
Steven. And then eat some of his good barbecue.
Oh yeah,
Spinks
that'd be
Ranch.
rubmedownbarbecue.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Wes. We really enjoyed having you out. You have broke the record, brother.
record.
You broke the
We
record.
can keep going.
Yeah. If I wouldn't have cut you off,
Carson, he's calling sick. We'll just keep going.
if Carson called in sick, your wife might throw an iron pan at us.
There's a couch upstairs. She'll go sleep.
There's a couch upstairs. So, really enjoyed you. I'm pretty sure we're going to take this whole podcast out to one of the hunting opportunities this winter. Carson's going to have the next day off because he's probably going to sleep on the couch.
Right.
That's probably where I'm going to end up. So, thanks for coming out.
You bet.
Having
Anytime.
a good time. Thanks for bringing our full curl straight bourbon whiskey. This is the Rocky Mountain Bighorn.
Yep.
And then we emptied that one.
Down
And
to the rye.
we are at the Doll Sheep Rye Whiskey.
And if
Pretty-
you like gin, I really like their gin. I think I like their gin as much, if not better than anything.
Really?
And it's got the stone sheep on the back of it.
Oh, really? Stone Sheep on the back of the gin. And all these, when you purchase these, some of
the money goes to the Wild Sheep Foundation.
Wild Sheep Foundation. One other thing we talked about numerous times, Camo Adventures, near and dear to my heart, near and dear to many people's hearts. fantastic organization. 100% of the money goes directly to the veterans and their opportunities. Strictly based currently out of Kansas and Missouri. Check them out. Camo is Kamo. Adventures spelt normally. So go check those out. Let us know if you have any questions, thoughts. I'll be more than happy to answer those or forward them to the people that can. If you want to hear more about Camo Adventures, do me a favor, respond. Tell Wes and everybody else that you'd really like to have Steven Johnson on here, the CEO, president, founder of Camo Adventures, and I can guarantee you he's a pretty cool guy. I really like talking to him. He's got a lot of stories. He's a very good entrepreneur.
Alaska Stories,
entrepreneurship. He owns some pretty awesome stuff. He's a good guy. Our plan is to get him on here before long. I'm going to end the podcast real quick. You got anything else you want to add?
I'm good.
You're good. Remember, everybody, like I end every podcast, shop American first. Make sure you shop your local downtown stores, your small businesses, so you can support that young boy or girl going to their activities, baseball, soccer, dance, whatever they are in the middle of doing. Without your support, they cannot do those things. Understand your small businesses are what you go to ask for contributions for your given organization. The CEOs back in wherever they're at could care less about your local small town, but the small local businesses do. So make sure you shop America first and shop local. Thank you very much for attending. Talk to you next time. Have a good evening.